meeting. It's Monday, the 18th of May. And we're just trying to finish up a few things that we started last week. So as we get to
You're
those
all ready.
items-
Go ahead and go.
Oh, hey, thank you. This is okay. Am I still good? It was just the delay, right? Okay. All right. I don't have to start over. Okay. Let's see who's first on my screen. Board Member Rill, do you want to introduce yourself? And then Emily Green, I have you after that. And then Joanne Brinton, you're after that.
Hi, my name is Sarah Reel. I represent District 5 here in Salt Lake County.
Hi, I'm Emily Green. I represent District 14. I'm the middle area, midsection of Utah.
Hi, I'm Joanne Brinton, and I represent the southern area of Utah, District 15.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody willing to spend a little extra time this month to get through a couple more items that we had. We are going to go ahead and get started. We didn't really list public comment. Did we have anybody call in with any public comment, Andrea?
No, nobody has requested public comment, so you
Okay.
can go to our next agenda item, which is the standards update 1.2.
Perfect. Okay. Let's go ahead and do just a quick review of some of those changes we had on there, or we had recommended, and we'd actually suggested. Sorry, I'm in between two screens if I'm going back and forth with looking, just so the public knows. We had made some revisions. We had a few other pieces that we were still considering. And I'm going to open it up for this body to see if there was anybody that had some additional recommendations, or if this is something we want to, well, I actually see it as two options, and that may depend on what we do with the social studies standards. And let me explain. If we choose to move the social studies standards forward for a full revision, then we may want to make a handful of these changes that we can make that are not in law prior to starting that revision. If we're not, then we can continue to work on this. Some of these items are going to need to be revised during the legislative session in order to be put into law or to update the code related to this particular item. So I think I will, let me see if I can go through a couple of the recommended changes just so we can kind of catch each other up and review. So on number 1, we have the core standards review rubric may only be brought before the revision consideration after a minimum of 5 years standards implementation. That is one recommendation that we had made. Look down my list here. And that the writing committee applicants are invited to apply through a formal public request outlining qualifications and expectations. So there's more of a formal process there that we can accept applications. And then on item 7, members will meet with stakeholders and board members may meet with stakeholders and community members while considering recommendations. That was another recommendation we had. And then it seemed like we had one more. It was the number of days. Did I skip past it? For public comment.
Is that the 45-day?
Yes, I'm just looking for where I.
Too.
So you can see the 45 is in
It's
green.
on 9. Yeah, it just with that green,
Yeah.
it was harder to pull out. So it's a recommendation of a 45-day public review period. And that would need to be changed in code, if I remember correctly.
Correct. And we put it on the list, Chair Earl.
Yes.
And this is Deputy Voorhees. We did put it on the policy request list.
Thank you. So the other discussion item that we had was related to a subcommittee who would maybe be part of that initial process. They would review the research, they would bring recommendations to the board, and then there was consideration or at least some discussion around that particular subcommittee kind of following through the process, and at maybe key places being able to re-engage with the work and the board itself. I have not taken the time to have additional discussion on this one. with other people, but I'm just curious if other board members have some additional recommendations at this point. Okay,
I've kind of wondered how much needs to be done with all the civics that's kind of all over the place, and should we be waiting, since this has a lot to do with the social studies standards. Does that affect this at all?
if we were to put the social studies out for full revision, then it could have some impact there. If we were to just do targeted
Yeah.
modifications. So,
Okay.
okay. But it's not, I mean, this would be any of those core standards. This isn't just related to social studies. So it would be anything that's,
Mhm.
Currently moving forward.
Right.
I just have a quick clarification on the green that's added. The minimum of 5 years ask is that that's something that we're asking for. Is that right? Because what we're trying to do is maybe prevent the revisions from happening as what seems as often. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right,
And
like,
it would be, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's just us trying to address that
Yes.
issue.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's to spread that out a little bit further before it's put on the rubric to be considered. Doesn't mean it will be immediately considered, but it spreads that out a little further.
Okay. And then when we trigger that at 5 years, say the minimum at 5 years, then we go through that process. So just so people that might be following this, that means that it would be up to 7 years before certain standards are updated or, finalized.
It could be. The only exception to that is if there was some legislation that required more immediate action. That would be, unless I'm wrong, staff can correct me if I'm wrong. I read this as if there's some legislation that required a more immediate action of some kind for as full revision, then that could be instigated or started earlier. Otherwise, it would spread that out a little further. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Yes, and then just one more level of clarification then. So with the new civics legislation that was passed, they had originally asked for it to be implemented this fall. And we realized that we just had to let them know that's not quite how the process works, like within our work. And
Yep.
I think we had that implemented next year to accommodate for what would be required through our standards.
That's accurate.
Process.
Sorry, that is accurate, except for it isn't a full revision. Those would be,
right.
Yeah, it would be the more targeted revision.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I
have a couple of questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Or ideas here that it's not necessarily in this section. One is, I was thinking about, so we've talked a lot at length about access to the writing committee, and I see the benefit in that for sure, but I'm wondering if we narrow it a bit to just say that within the writing committee, there's like designated spokespeople. So those people sign up knowing I'm on the writing committee and I've been designated the spokesperson. And it can be like 2 to 3 people per writing committee who can be the ones that we can meet with, rather than trying to coordinate the whole writing committee, which can be hard and difficult since a lot of them are educators and don't have that time in the middle of the day on a Wednesday to meet with us. But then also because then I think that unfortunately we've seen, not recently, but in years past, these writing committee feel a little bit worried about their identity and want to have that protected. I've heard that shared to me. I've had that shared to me. And so I think maybe if these people sign up as designated spokespeople for the writing committee, then it will make it a lot easier to coordinate and meet with them. But then also it gives the educators that protection, knowing like I'm not going to be the person that's going to be coming to the committee meeting to talk about it, for example. And I think that will help make sure that if we open up to everyone, I worry that some teachers or people on the writing committee aren't going to want to do it because they don't want to be open to that piece of the process.
And when you say come talk to us, you're talking like the state board or?
Yeah. So like when we've wanted to meet with the writing committee, I think there's been hesitation. We've heard that. So my idea is that we just designate, like, each writing committee has 2 to 3 people designated as the spokespeople, and they're the ones that we coordinate and communicate and ask questions to. And they can go back to their writing committee if there's, you know what I mean? But rather than trying to have the whole committee open up to being accessible for board members to reach out to. So it's just narrowing that section a little bit.
Okay, I'm pondering that a little bit. I do
Okay.
think one of the things we want to do though is when we need to be when someone applies to be or submits a recommendation, they need to know what that relationship is. So I think there is a possibility there that we could do. I don't know if you call them spokespersons. I guess they could be, but maybe a lead for
That was just the main
fifth grade
name I
or
made up.
sixth
Yeah.
grade or so. Yeah. Or the 6th grade writing that would, be the contact person. So I do think there
And
is.
we could even have, like, if it's K through 12, we could have, like, different spokesperson for each, level. Like, there could be multiple depending on how big the standards review and the committee is, like, so that they're the experts in that part of the standards for sure. But I feel like it will be better to narrow it down, and then people can still volunteer to be on the writing committee or sign up to be on the writing committee and not have to worry about some of the things that I've had expressed to me from other folks. But at the same time, it still gives us access to ask those questions to the people directly writing the standards.
And can I ask how that might, like, how that looks? Do we email them? Would it be transparent? Like, I'm worried also about the transparency and the accessibility of this committee to help as we go through the development of this. I think feedback is always helpful. I like the idea of being able to streamline that communication a little bit better than maybe what it's been before. So are you envisioning us being able to email those contacts directly, or would that go through staff? Like, what do the logistics look like on that?
I'm open to that piece of it, but I think, like, the way that I see it is the writing committee, people apply, they get chosen to be on the writing committee. And maybe, I don't know, is Megan on? Maybe she has some ideas here too of how that works, because she's the one doing a lot of the coordinating. But we have the writing committee decided, and then from there they ask, we need X amount of leads to be the ones who will be available for questions from the board, who will be available to potentially attend a couple meetings if there are additional questions or things the committee wants to work through with the writing committee. And those people volunteer as, like, the writing committee leads or whatever to then work with us. And how that works from our end is, if we say, hey, like with math, we had some moments where we were like, we would love to talk to the writing committee. It would be a lot easier to say, okay, we'll get the writing committee leads together and set up a time for them to come to your committee meeting or have a separate meeting, rather than trying to just have it fully open.
Is it fully open right now? Sorry for that question.
No, and it's not fully open, and that's what we're changing here, is allowing access, because currently we don't have access to the writing committee. So this is allowing access, and I think rather than just full open, it's just having these leads. And then I think that will help the folks who are working on these standards feel a little bit more comfortable knowing, like, I don't have to be the one that goes to the committee meeting and sits in a public meeting talking about it. I can have our lead is comfortable doing that, and they're the ones that are designated for that part.
I do think I had also wondered if we do end up with that subcommittee that kind of follows at different processes or at different points that they may also engage with those individuals if we wanted to do that, because I do think if they start in the process and be able to provide feedback along the way.
So the way that it seems that we've been doing this is we have our members of staff that are on that committee over that department, and they it's like the math department. We hear from them, we give them feedback, they take that to the committee, if I am understanding that correctly. So this would add maybe a different level of engagement. What would that relationship look like between that person and staff, where staff has kind of let out on that role?
Is Megan ever on? Maybe she has some expertise having coordinated so many of these.
I'm here. Megan Everett, Director of Teaching and Learning. So I think you could do this in a couple of ways. One thing that was discussed as an idea, going back to what Member Earl or Chair Earl was saying about the subcommittee, I think if I understood what you were going towards there was that up in the committee that right now is assembled as the review committee before everything gets started, you're considering that as being more of a committee that is functions as a subcommittee throughout the process. So they're not just at the beginning, but they have like key points along the way. So that if that's the case, that could be that writing committee or that could be the spokespeople for this writing committee that have more interaction or availability for discussion. Another place that you could consider putting that might be in step 6, where we're asking people to apply to the writing committee. And right now it says that staff organize that writing committee according to a standard operating procedure that gets approved by the superintendent. We could have included in that procedure or somewhere in step 6, kind of what those committee members' different roles are, how that communication works. I think we had also, at one point, there was a discussion about maybe that's more of like an MOU that's created, or I don't know if MOU is the right word, but when we bring people on the writing committee and we tell them, their responsibility is getting them to kind of commit to that in writing in some way, where it's mostly been staff conveying that to them that their names wouldn't be shared, but there's no real formal thing written down. So it could look something like contract, probably is too formal of a word, but an agreement where it states what the interaction looks like, that the board and the writing committee members would have.
Thank you. Cheryl, I almost think it's just as simple in this process where we're at now of saying, because based on now what Megan's explained with the operational plans being included, that's probably what Member Green is wondering about. Like, do we have a process in place, which it sounds like we do with operational planning, that we just add in there, the writing committee meets, comma, they appoint or designate the committee leads, review the same, you know what I mean? Like, that's just part of what they're doing in there. It's just a simple line that just says that they'll designate that. And then on the operational planning and on the other side is like more the logistical piece of that doesn't need to be included in this.
I just know, Deputy Superintendent Voorhees, did you have a comment or did that get?
Yeah, I was just going to say we already create a professional services agreement with the writing committee members so that we can pay them for their time, and we could just include that. I mean, to Megan's point, it wouldn't need to be, but we already have a document that we could include that in. That was it.
I just know there's been a little bit of pushback on not knowing who's on the writing committee from the public. And it sounds like there might be a balance in that, if we have leads, those leads would know that their names would be disclosed. Others would just be working on the project. It just brings, it's just a question I have is if we have up front what the relationship is, so they know up front. Just because I do have a concern if we don't know anybody that's on the writing committee, and it just seems there's this lack of transparency. I can see that, if we said that the leads of this would be leading out and would have a public face, and they knew that up front, I can see where we could, kind of maybe balance those two pieces out.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying there at the end is that balance, I think. And I wish that writing committee folks didn't feel worried about their identity in some way. I wish that wasn't a reality, but feels like some of them do feel uncomfortable, and it might be why some amazing experts are not volunteering or signing up to do the writing committee. So this maybe gives us a little bit of a balance.
So taking on the title of spokesperson, does that elevate them to a different level of like authority? Does that give them the role of speaking to the press, um, coming in the full board? Like, what does that do because it does create a level of formality and I don't know, just a different type of position. And I'm just thinking through logistics. I don't necessarily dislike the idea. I'm intrigued by that. I think serving on the writing committee is a great opportunity. I know teachers that have served on writing committees, and they were very proud to say that they were on those committees. So I think pushback is in a healthy way is a healthy thing and helps make better product. And like I've said before, words are a product on a page. So but back to my question, would that elevate their role in any way? And how would they present to the state of Utah being a
I,
spokesperson?
I mean, I don't know. I'm just speaking for myself. I would view that as, I don't see them as um, like they're the media people. That's not their role. I see them as working with either the subcommittee or even reporting out and engaging with the Standards and Assessment Committee, or board members in whatever capacity. I see them as that, as well as the knowledge that they will publicly know who they are, right? That kind of a thing. It's not, very transparent on who these people are and what their engagement is. So I see it that way. I don't see it as a spokesperson for going out and advocating for the standards, because that's not their role and shouldn't be their role.
We probably need to
Yeah.
somehow clarify that because I think we've
Yeah.
seen how sometimes we don't even know why it's going to get big, but it does.
Yeah,
And
I would
so,
agree.
the questions start getting asked, and if they have that thing associated with their name, I'm sure that they would be reached out to and take on a public role just by its very nature. So anyway, just something to think about that I see kind of looking down the road happening.
And maybe that those pieces are designated in the operational planning or the other piece, but for this document, we can just, put in there that that's one of their tasks in the description to say that they'll also designate writing committee leads.
Are you
So-
making a motion then on that?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is that this is like if we're doing an inverted pyramid, like this is like the big picture, and then we get more granular when we go down and get into the operational planning and the day-to-day and tactics of how staff manages these writing committees and how they're coordinated. And so for this, I just thought it would be good to mention in there, the writing committee meets, designates writing committee leads, reviews the state board approved recommendation, and uses those approved provisions and review. You know what I mean? Just somewhere in there that it states in step 6 that is also one of the steps that they'll take.
I think in order for me I'd want to give this a little bit more time to understand how that shows up. So Sarah, or member Rill, does this show up the first time in step 6? I believe, because that's when this happens, when the writing committee applicants are invited to apply, blah, blah, blah. Is that correct?
Yeah, and actually now that I'm reading that right there, staff organize a writing committee, comma, designate
Writing leads, right?
writing leads, like right up there in that second sentence, Leah. Staff organize a writing committee, comma.
Got it.
Or so, you know what I mean?
And then I would like to know
Somewhere
how
in there.
that manifests from step 6 onward.
Okay, so
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
designate
Yeah. I get what you're
writing
saying. I just think
committee
that
leads.
this isn't as granular as all the pieces that we see. Does that make sense in the full sentence? I didn't get a chance to.
I think so. Hang on just a sec.
Okay.
Add the words. designates writing committee leads. Okay, so let me fix the font so that you can see it. Okay, so in step 6, after the words "the writing committee meets," add the words "designates writing committee leads." And then I mean, I can put it in context here so you can see it. Like this. Is that what you were hoping for?
Yeah, just something simple in there that states it. I think that works. And then part of the SOP, this is what I think Member Green is asking about. Like that will outline more of the details. That SOP will outline more of the details about how those interactions work and the processes. And we can put in there, if there could be something in there that says, they won't go to the media or whatever, those different pieces that we may be worried about in that part of the SOP. Feels like that's the place for it instead of in this document.
Can I run through just another, just kind of a logistical question here? That if I'm understanding it correctly, these committee leads will kind of be like a liaison between us and the committee. Is that correct? Member Ill, that's probably for you.
Yeah. So they would be the ones. So like if, for example, during math, when we were having questions and we wanted to talk through certain pieces, we would set up a meeting with the leads and have that conversation rather than saying, go out there and talk to any of the writing committee members or try and organize that many people in one meeting. We have leads who represent the writing committee that have those discussions with us so we can ask those questions.
And then as it stands now, typically I think like my feedback has gone through staff. Does that take them out of the loop? Does that take them out of the loop in any way? And is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Like,
I don't see that. I guess I'm not envisioning that, but I don't know if I maybe haven't seen the full, vision of what Board Member Rail's talking about. I would see that as just at key times, and I think you're right, Board Member Green. We'll need to make sure those are in the process, right? That they are, engaged with. So
the other thing, and the one thing that I'm thinking here is that, typically when we go through, when we work with staff, there's, you can follow that timeline or follow the record or follow the communication, like that happens through an email, it happens through a meeting. So we can track that. Do we see anything that could, it's like everybody kind of knows their role. So I just been wondering if that lead would understand the nuance that exists in this space, through our standards review processes and the way that we improve things, we give feedback, we kind of track our progress. Like, is there anything that we see there that it's again creating a different structure of authority outside of being a board member and a staff, and then typically the writing committee themselves? And if staff has any feedback, I'm just kind of looking through the logistics of it long term.
I guess, and I'm just thinking out loud too. So if I'm missing something, I personally, I do look forward to some type of engagement instead of a hands off. So this seems to open that door without creating all the logistic problems, but I'm trying to understand if there's a, what the depth of concern might be, or maybe it's just new, so we're trying to kind of filter it all out.
Yep.
Okay.
That's kind of really, that's what it is. And again, just being in this committee now for 4 years, the news happens, and the debates kind of happen. I want to know like how we're gonna handle the logistics of that, because I don't think it's if, it's when. And we really haven't been able to talk with the committee before, right? The writing committees. I'm looking for a confirmation on that.
Yeah, well, that was yes and no, because during
Yeah, at
of
some
our-
points we did, like during ELA, remember we had some of the writing committee members join our committee meeting, and that was like awesome because they gave so much clarity on different pieces. I think we also had a couple people during the seed standards join, and then we kind of went back a little bit to say, let's not have that sort of openness. And this is, instead of going to full openness, it's just like there'll be certain, like what we had like with ELA, it was like there was two people, there was like an elementary and a high school, whatever. There were two people that could talk on each of the pieces of ELA, and I thought that was really helpful, and they were great representations and of the writing committee at that time. So that's where it came from. I saw that work really well, and I thought that potentially this would work as well too. And I also think that the idea of having their responsibility to make sure they're representing the work of the writing committee is helpful, and then also knowing that they're comfortable being engaging directly with elected state school board members and potentially being in public meetings and having public comment. I think that's good to identify those folks in the writing committee and then just have them be the designated folks that we work with.
And with the different writing committee obviously is going to have robust conversation and review, so there's going to be a lot of alignment with each other. There's probably also going to be a lot of differing of opinions on what might be better. I'm wondering if that committee lead has a level of authority over other committees, over other committee members. And I say that in regards to, again, if we're structuring if we're implementing a level of authority over a committee itself, which a title sometimes can imply that, is that going to negatively affect somebody that is trying to implement like the standard that they're looking to implement, and that will be
You're talking committee members, is that right? Okay. I mean,
yeah.
I think that is a fair, and maybe it's staff don't pick that person. Maybe it's the committee itself picks a spokesperson, right? I don't know. It's something to think about there, but I think you're right. There could be a power differential once you start assigning someone to speak on behalf of others, but it also could be a voice that they're bringing to it. So right now we don't have really any. So, which we saw in the fall when we asked those, questions, can we ask questions about this and this and this, right? But there wasn't really an easy way to do that or a formal process.
And
So
I think the SOP will be good at, identifying those pieces. Like that's part of like, we're looking at this at the big picture, and then the SOP and the processes that staff sets up, we can review those to make sure we feel comfortable with it. But just including it here on the big picture on this document seems like there's plenty of questions that we can ask when we look at the SOP and those details later.
Is there typically staff that meets every time the committee meets? Okay, so that's already getting tracked.
Yeah.
That work is already getting tracked with the member from USBE, correct?
That would be accurate.
Okay.
I don't know the exact tracking, but yes, they would be there and in that situation. So, okay, I'm going to make just a recommendation here, just because I'm looking at time, trying to gauge time. Seems like there's probably going to be additional discussion with this item. I'm actually going to suggest we continue this discussion with whatever time we have left at the end of the meeting, and maybe it would continue at the next meeting. If that's okay with this body. We can go for maybe another 5 minutes here, but I'd like to get the other items finished. And this one still has what feels like a lot of probing or additional questions.
Okay, member Earl, can I throw one more in for people to think about?
Yeah.
Then I'm fine with that. But I'm wondering if we kind of like mentioned that, well, I thought about the early review committee and just what if we just, this is just an idea, what if we just took that early review committee and just made it part of the regular committee? And then it would free up some time trying to find people for both and on the front end.
You're talking the possible suggested subcommittee kind of a thing?
No,
Or-
the early review committee.
Yeah, my recommendation, but it isn't formalized yet, is to replace that review committee with some kind of a subcommittee that
Okay.
has a different engagement. They
Okay,
help
that's fine
provide
too
the
then. I
research
just
up
feel
front,
like
the recommendation, yeah.
it just was like another step and I was like, what if we just put those together? So, or that idea would work too. Okay, I'm fine with that.
I don't know,
Is
and
that
I
the parent
I don't have
committee?
that all fleshed out yet either, so
Right.
my apologies.
Is
But-
that the parent committee that you are trying to merge into? Is that what you mean by
Yeah,
sheriff?
by
The
a
early
sub-
committee? Is that what you mean? That initial
Yeah.
parent committee?
Like
Okay.
merging them together to just remove a step, but having that voice still there.
I think that's a great idea.
And I think that could also include possibility of a couple of board members on there as well as a couple of legislators as well. So it could be a
Yeah, I
broader
just, that
group.
part,
Mhm.
yeah. I just worry about when we include board members or legislators, it sometimes slows it down, but I want to
Okay.
get it right too. So,
Once again, I'm going to recommend we continue to have this discussion. I'm going to put it towards the back because I think, Megan, you're smiling. We've been having this good discussion for a while, but I mean, as we vet these things out, and I think, bringing forth an idea, then we kind of have to balance it all out. What happens to the dynamics and what happens to the implications there. And welcome, Vice Chair Wood. Thank you for chiming in there. So is that all right with this body if we move it to the end of the agenda, and if we have time, we continue this discussion then?
That's
yeah, do you
fine.
want to do this amendment?
I think I want to have some more discussion about it before we move it, before we formally vote on it, if that's
Well,
okay.
you're the chair.
Well, I am, but I'm asking this body. Is that all right if we move it to the end and we will continue with where we're at? We're kind of
That's
leaving
fine.
it hanging a little bit, but
It's fine.
I'm okay with that.
okay. Okay, we're going to move to the second agenda item. So I wonder, do I need to make a formal vote on that we postpone this till the end of our meeting? Let me just do that. I'm going to make a motion that we postpone the first item 1.2 to the conclusion of our meeting and pick it up with whatever time we have left. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Joanne, are you with us? Okay, I'm saying that it's unanimous, but I'm not sure if board member.
Sorry, I couldn't get it to go to
Okay,
the volume thing. Yes,
okay. And we're going to move to the second item on our agenda so we can keep moving through a few of these that need to get moved out by June for sure. Okay, the next item is agenda item 1.3, which is the R277917. This is a new rule. It's related to the Gold Medal Schools pilot program. And we had made some revisions. We voted on accepting a draft, right? So Earl Draft 1, and there were some revisions already made. Did we make any someone help me really quick?
I can jump in and help.
Yeah, thank you. I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm
no
trying to
problem.
remember where we got
No
to.
problem. So Jennifer Wadsworth, Policy Advisor. So yes, we've officially adopted Earl Draft 1 as the draft that we're working on currently. So the amendments that are in there are the amendments that were already accepted by moving that draft forward. And now any amendments we will make in this committee meeting will be going to Earl Draft 1. So we're just starting from here. I don't know if Andrea is sharing the screen, but we are not on the correct draft. We need the Earl draft. Thank you. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I have just a couple of questions I want to throw out there. I know we had discussions around, get to the line. It was 52, and there's another provision in here too where I had asked about putting in the, yeah, that's line 52. So implement a local school physical and nutritional wellness policy. And there was some discussion that the schools have wellness policies, but not physical and nutritional policies. I went and looked at a whole bunch of policies that are out there currently in the state of Utah. Most of them do have a physical fitness policy and a nutritional wellness policy. And they may have other wellness policies too. So I'm actually going to make just a recommendation that, let me see what the wording was. I have some wording I would like us to use, that we use physical and nutritional health provisions as part of a wellness policy. So on 52, it would say, implement a local school wellness policy. Oh no. Oh goodness, let me make sure I've got this right. I've got 2 lines here. Implement a local school wellness policy that includes both physical and nutritional components. I don't know if that's what I wanted to say, so hold on just 1 second. Tell me how that committee, if you want it to say, because what I'm trying to say is that the wellness policy includes, sometimes it includes, there was like, I don't know, 100 things in the one. It was things like positive behavior plan. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is it went beyond the physical policy as far as physical fitness, and it went beyond the nutrition to include all kinds of things like idling your car, um, suicide prevention, mental health stuff. It was all of these, it was a whole bunch of stuff in our model policy. So once again, I want to make sure that we're not just broadening this out so we lose what we're actually trying to do here. Yes, Specialist Parker, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chair Earl. Yeah, Jody Parker, Health Education Specialist. And Chair Earl, what I think you just referred to, staff created a model policy a few years ago, and that was based off of some input from several LEAs, and actually started through parents and PTA groups that wanted to see what it would look like if everything health, wellness related was in one place, how that would look. And so it was everything under that has any kind of state code or a rule. So things like medication management for nurses. And so we put all of it together. There are a couple schools that we did. We did 2 different cohorts working with schools, LEAs, so either charters or districts. And only a couple of them adopted a similar look, but what most of them did is created a place where everything health or wellness related lives in the same place on their website so that parents can find those things. We did not remove our model from the website, but it was just a model that was related to a previous strategic plan. So that's where that piece came from. The school wellness policies, which are required for every school that it participates in the National Lunch Program, does already require physical activity and nutrition. Those 2 elements are required for wellness policies. Those are non-negotiables.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying though, is that when you say wellness policy in here,
Yes.
it goes beyond the scope, and it not necessarily, but a lot of them only did the nutrition and the physical fitness piece, right? Recess and physical activity. But some of them were, so when you say wellness policy, it could be inclusive of all those other things that we talked about. And what I found that most of them only had those two provisions.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm just help us create the clarity here. Because if we just do wellness policy, it does open the door for we could be spending money and time on all kinds of things that are not what the intent was. So I just want to create that clarity. And I understand they have a wellness policy. So
And I think, if you wanted my opinion, I think the
yeah,
way
what's
you
the wording?
phrased it, that implement a school wellness policy, maybe it's like emphasizing nutrition and physical activity or something like that, right?
Or could it be
So I
include?
think you could call
Yeah.
out that those two components are what this is about. I think that's fine. I think that you would just need to say implement a local school wellness policy. I think that's the part that probably has to stay together because that's what it's called. And then after that, if you wanted to bring out that you want the wellness policy, that the part of the wellness policy that they have to implement is the physical activity and nutrition, I think that's fine.
Okay, so let me try this one more time then, whoever's running. What if it said implement a local school wellness policy that includes both physical fitness and nutritional components? Does that get closer?
Can you direct me to where that would show up in the document? I'm so sorry.
51, line 51.
Chair Earl, would it also be in the other couple places that wellness policy was brought up? So there's like 2 or 3 places, right?
Yeah. And would it be includes or should we put emphasizes both physical fitness and nutritional?
Or you could say focusing on.
Okay, that would work. Focusing on.
Yours weren't wrong. I was giving another suggestion.
Yeah, I do like the focusing actually.
Because then that would draw that that's where the goal needs to be.
Okay, so let's see what. Okay, implement a local school wellness policy focusing on both physical fitness and nutritional components. Components, is that the right word, committee? Or should it be provisions or components? Anybody have a? No,
May I suggest a slight
yeah.
focusing on the areas of physical fitness and nutrition?
Okay, yeah, I like that. Focusing on the areas of physical fitness and nutrition. Yeah, I think that is.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
This wouldn't make them think they have to do something different than what's already required when it says implement a local school wellness policy. If it's already required for those schools or LEAs that are having lunch programs, is there a way to make sure that, are you wanting them to do a different program or a different policy, or can this be coordinated with the one they already have? So we're not asking them to do over and above. If they're already doing the right thing, carry on.
Can I answer that?
Yes.
Yeah, Member Wood, every district participates in the school meals program. So they do all have wellness policies right now. There are a few charter schools that currently do not participate in the nutrition program. That doesn't mean they don't have a wellness policy, but it means they are not required to. So theoretically, there are some schools that do not currently have a wellness policy, but the big chunk of this grant that was written by Department of Health and Human Services. This was one of the provisions that is in their narrative and their application. And so it is a piece that we have to ensure is done. It is not a piece that we have to focus and we have to require their goals are around. It is a piece, though, that we have to ensure that there is a wellness policy in place. And
Okay,
for 99% of the schools, it's already done.
They already know
And so
this.
it's a checkbox, right?
Yeah, that's what I want to say. They just know this is the thing we're already doing. We just do better. Like that. That's all I want to make sure is we're not adding another thing if they're already doing it. But
yes, and I would say the word implement was Jennifer, I think that you could speak because we met with one of our school nutrition coordinators the word implement was very intentional because we have a lot of schools, and when we were doing these cohorts for 4 years, we found schools have wonderful wellness policies, but when you get into a school, not all the teachers even know that there are wellness policies. So the word implement was really intentional because it's not so much of, as Chair Earl has said a few times, it's not we're going to spend all the time and money writing policies. They have a policy. It's going to be implementing the physical activity and the nutrition parts of their policy so that the students are participating. And I think that's where, with our school nutrition coordinator, that was the part that they're kind of excited about too, is getting those policies to be acted on and have students really doing the physical activity and the nutrition as intended.
And just
I
remind
hope
me,
that
this
answered
is
your question.
specific to rural schools, right? This
Correct.
particular grant and program is specific to rural schools. Okay.
Specific to, there's 207 total rural elementaries that would be part of this, yes.
And let's, when we say rural, let's be clear that I think it's only 5 districts that don't participate in this. So Box Elder, because it's the size of the county.
It's
Oh.
4 counties
Oh,
that
4.
are not participant. So that is more than 4 districts though, because Weber County has 2 districts and a bunch of charters.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Yep. Davis County, Salt Lake County, which is 4 different districts, and then Utah County, which is 3 different districts. So
Yeah.
it's Weber, Davis, Salt Lake, and Utah counties are excluded. Everywhere else is included.
That's right. I just want to make sure because some of those areas are maybe not as rural as some people may think, but because of the size of the county, it's what is the inclusion or exclusionary piece.
Yeah.
So
I have a quick question
yeah.
on a couple of these, just the line items. So line 40.
Should we just real quick, should we vote on this before we go to another one, or is this related to this?
Hold on real quick. Let me,
Okay.
it's big again. Oh, I mean, we can finish that. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Let's
not
take a
direct.
vote on this and then we'll go ahead with the next question that someone has. So before the committee is to change line 52 to read, implement a local school wellness policy focusing on the areas of physical fitness and nutrition. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
That passes unanimously. Okay, Board Member Green, what was your question?
Yeah, so I had just spent some time trying to study the rural health transformation program kind of at large. It's very broad and it actually seems to have quite a few layers. So that's why I'm taking us to line 44, where it talks about the application requirements and selection criteria. And this is an application should include a detailed implementation plan in alignment with the rural health transformation program, describing how the school will do the following items. One of those items is on line 55, where it says baseline data related to student health or wellness indicators. What are people currently using for that baseline data, and how are they acquiring that information on student health or wellness? And how would you define wellness? Like, what is wellness currently described in the
I actually have an
reports?
amendment for that line, Board Member Green. Can I suggest that and maybe see if that might help a
Could
little
I get
bit?
an answer first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I
how
just
it
wanted to change it from
reads.
wellness indicators to something more scripted or scoped, but go ahead.
Well, I feel like if this is, how that is defined, and if we are following that definition in the rural health transformation program. And I don't know if there's someone in staff that might know that.
Would you like me to answer that?
Yeah, Jody, if you have that.
Yeah. So we do have flexibility here. If you notice, this part, I believe, came out of the bill, HB 36. There is also quite a bit of requirement for data. They need some pre and post data to show the success of the program. That's what will determine the funding for next year. Last board meeting, I kind of explain that we have 3 million this year. Next year, that number can go up or down depending on kind of the results and how well it was implemented and what some of the outcomes are. So we do have to be able to show there's an outcome. So we do have flexibility. The board, y'all, can determine what some of those baseline data that we're going to use are. However, what some of it could be, for some examples, we could use the presidential fitness test. We do now have the presidential fitness test just released 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, new parameters. So we have that now. Chair Earl, who you and I did meet with the sponsor of the bill, and at the time there were no parameters, so we took out the specificity of presidential. Department of Health and Human Services knows that we will be adding it back in now because we now have parameters for that presidential fitness test. Presidential fitness test. Whoa, those words got scrambled. We can though use that. So that could be baseline data. Where are students before we implement any kind of fitness program in the school? And then where are they 8 months later? So that could be baseline data and then our post data that we use. We could also use some kind of a nutrition assessment. What do they already know about fruits and vegetables and proteins and fats? What do they already know? And then we use our standards for that nutrition education and any of the instructional materials that the school chooses to use. Does the nutrition education for the students, does that improve? And that could be baseline data. Could be when you look at the other things that we are requiring, it is the physical activity and fitness assessments, the nutrition education. So I'm looking on lines 50, 51, the wellness policy. So as a result of those, what does our data look like? And how does it improve? Because we do need to have actual outcomes. I think a really easy one would be the presidential fitness test and nutrition education. So I think those would be two really easy ones because we already have nutrition standards and now we have the presidential fitness test parameters public. So those would both be really easy ones to set. Of course, you could choose any other ones that you wanted to add, but that's
Could it, and
that's
I
what it
thought a
means
lot
to me
about,
when I see that.
I thought a
board
lot
member
about
grade.
this too, because it could also be verification that so many minutes were spent on recess or so many minutes were spent on physical education, specific type of things in physical education. So it could be verification from the school itself that they spent time doing X, Y, and Z, right? That could be a validating feature because like I said, I've thought a lot about this. What does this need to be and what does it not need to be? We don't want to, overdo something, but we also want to have some kind of an indicator. Board Member Green, did you have additional questions on that or comments?
I think I'm just looking to make sure that I do have an understanding of what this rule is, HB 36 is as well. And it does seem, I'm reading through, all the red on that bill and it seems to be tailoring to the physical education and the nutritional education. Is that correct? Is that like what we're seeing here? And the rule in front of us, and this is all new from that new bill. Is that correct?
That's
Okay.
accurate. That's why we're doing the rule.
Yeah. So, how do we clarify that in the rule then? Because I know that we probably should be specific on, data related on line 55, baseline data related to student health or wellness indicators if available and as determined by the board. So we need to determine that. And is that determined anywhere else in the rule? Or is that maybe something that we're missing here still?
Shonda, I don't know your full title. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Candace Denger, Arts and Wellness Coordinator. Some of these will also be in an agreement we're working on with the DHHS on the indicators and measurements that we're going to be tracking around this. So that's another place that's going to be tracked for them to then report back to the Rural Health Transformation Grant specifically. And so if you want, we can look at that. It's not been signed yet, and so we're waiting for that signature, but we could try and align some of those pieces around what that looks like. So one of those, like Jody had shared, was the presidential fitness, but it was also the fruits and vegetables that were eaten, you know, like some specific things that they outlined. So that might be something to coordinate efforts on with what they need to measure for the grant process, and in that document, that's that agreement that's happening, interagency agreement.
So there's going to be an interagency agreement, and this will be given to the LEAs that choose to participate in this grant. They don't have to participate, but they can. And in doing so, they get the funding for that. So you're creating that interagency agreement, which the school will have to communicate to you, probably in a written form, on what their approach is for this. Is that correct?
So the
Yeah.
interagency agreement is through DHHS and USBE, and then we're creating a grant. So Jody's been working on a grant application that they will then set goals towards that. And that's still really much in draft form. We're hoping to get a person hired for the gold medal schools. There's some funding available for that. And so there's going to be that piece that goes out to LEAs, and they fill out a grant in Utah Grants Management. And then the first year we'll be implementing, getting them started towards a designation, and then the designation would happen after that.
Does this extend in any way into like receiving the grant? Does that extend into any of the other areas that fall underneath the rural health transformation program?
The grant will only go to LEAs.
LEAs, meaning does it go to any other types of initiatives or programs outside of physical education or nutritional education? And I'm looking at like the telehealth, the wellness centers in the school, like
It should be, that's why we're trying to narrowly scope it, or at least I'm trying to make sure it's narrowly scoped, because that particular grant that was already accepted by the state in December, I believe, or November, is massive, right? But for this to be narrowly scoped to nutrition and physical education in schools, trying to make sure that language is here. That's what I'm understanding. Is that what you staff are
May I
understanding?
answer that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there is already a different contract for the telehealth and all of those things. There are different agencies already doing those. For example, University of Utah, Huntsman Cancer Institute, they have a whole different piece of that funding that they're doing. Department of Transportation has a different piece that they're doing. So this $3 million is only for gold medal schools. It is designated, it'll only do gold medal schools. And this $3 million, and it is right now annual. But as I had mentioned, we are set to get $3 million per year for 5 years. If our part of it does really well, it could go up. If our schools are not utilizing it, it could go down. So it's not a guaranteed $3 million, because the money comes each year from the federal government, the CMS group. They reallocate those funds annually, and the amount can fluctuate. But we do anticipate the $3 million being an ongoing for the 5 years. And it is earmarked, it is specifically, that $3 million is specifically for gold medal schools and nothing but gold medal schools.
Okay, thank you so much. And my next question, if I may ask, is that
Go ahead.
okay?
Yeah.
Is line 74. So it says are measurable and evidence-based. And so I'm wondering, how do we measure this? Does this fall under like PE? Does this fall under home economics? Like, where would this one fall underneath?
May I?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. So measurable could be, again, we could use the presidential fitness test. That is measurable. We can use recess. We have board chair Earl, you and I have worked really hard on a recess guide. It has a lot of evidence-based things in there, and also a lot of measurable items in there. That's been published on our website since January of 2020, when we when we finalized that and presented it to the board in a full board meeting. So we have a recess guidance, bringing that back. We also have health education's core standards, which are also approved. We have those in kindergarten through sixth grade, so we can use those nutrition standards. And there's evidence-based instructional materials that can be used to teach nutrition in that way. The evidence-based if they go curriculum, so we're looking at physical education standards or health education standards, either of those would a school would choose their curriculum, but we would want it to be an evidence-based curriculum, which we have on RIMS now, and we show when they're evidence-based. And we have several choices already in elementary for both PE and health education. Both of them have several choices, and the vendors, the curriculum chosen, it tells you when it's evidence-based. And so we could choose that. There is a plethora of evidence-based recess practices. The fitness test would be, there are evidence-based ways to implement that. Fitnessgram is an example of that. So there are dozens and dozens of ways that would be qualified as evidence-based to measure nutrition and physical activity, and then the fitness test. So those are what I see as being your three measurable points. But this is a requirement of the funding, is that we have measurable and evidence-based goals for the schools when they are getting that gold medal designation. So when they are working for that gold medal, and the students are being able to do those things, we're doing it in a way that is evidence-based and measurable.
Thank you. And as I read further down in the rule here, line 80, it does state a documented program implementation, student participation data, participation in a fitness assessment, and other evidence required by the Rural Health Transformation Program. And I guess the other evidence is again, I'm just intrigued by what that other evidence is and how that is reported. And at this point, that's still getting developed, or do you know?
So most of that, there was also a line in the bill that led to this, but from what I understand in our weekly meetings with Department of Health and Human Services, CMS may require evidence for the Rural Health Transformation Program, and working with other federal grants through USBE now for several years. Sometimes you are asked to provide a data point, and so you have to give that evidence of that data point. And it could be the amount of money spent on a certain thing. It could be it could be how many schools are implementing the presidential fitness test. And it's usually, in my experience, I've been running a different federal program for USB now for 6 years. In my experience, it's not something that the schools have to do. It's something that staff has to do, is we have to track and we have to be able to say how many schools are doing this thing that's required. So in this case, I could see one of the questions being how many schools are implementing the presidential fitness test, and we'd have to be able to say 150 or whatever it is, right? We'd have to be able to say that, or we'd have to be able to say how many schools have started a nutrition education program, how many schools are doing active recess, things like that. So it's tracking on our end, not so much the school end. In my experience, that's how they've been.
And on that note, then you triggered this question, which is what role or what person have you typically seen, or are they seeing, or do you anticipate taking this, like overseeing this in their school? Is it at a district level that they'll go to their elementaries, or do you see a role being created or absorbed into another role to track this?
Would you like me to answer?
Yeah, go ahead and answer.
Yeah. I think you're going to see a lot of variability there. I think some of the bigger districts, I'm using that word very specifically, some of the bigger districts, they probably have someone that would take it on. Some of your smaller that might be a stretch to ask someone to add something else when, they're already very, very small. And so they might need to do a stipend or bring in someone to help run some of these things. As far as the nutrition education, that should already be done in the classroom. We have standards already. We've had standards for I've been in education 19 years. We've always had standards in health education and elementary. And nutrition has always been a requirement in elementary. So I don't think that that's so much going to be new. It might be new as far as they might have to look at their curriculum and make sure that it's aligned to the standards and make sure it's evidence-based. But that part shouldn't be new. The presidential fitness test is likely going to be new in the elementary, especially. A lot of our secondary schools have always done it. Even when it kind of went away, they still just kept doing it. But in elementary, I don't think there's very many schools that participate in presidential fitness assessments right now. So that might be something new. But most schools also do have a PE specialist of some kind, whether it's a paraprofessional, whether it's a certified teacher. Most schools do have somebody doing PE in elementary. And so it could be that person now is implementing the fitness assessment during some of their PE time that they already have. So I think that some schools are going to be more creative than others in how they divide out who the person at the school level responsible. But I think there are a lot of schools that already know who's going to do it. I'm getting a lot of calls and a lot of emails. There are a lot of very excited schools right now about participating. So I think that they are less worried about the person doing it and really anxious to see what is going to be required and the how. So that's been my experience. I've been on this now for about 3 months, and there's a lot of excitement.
So Jody, just one other question, if you don't mind. This can be used for resources too, right?
Yes.
Like, so playground resources or physical education resources for the school. It's not really meant to supplant any already ongoing programming, but it's to accentuate and to help make more effective, right?
Yeah. So materials and supplies would be an allowable use. Equipment would not be, because that's a $10,000 or more, right? There's a very specific
okay.
rule
Okay.
there, right? So it'd be supplies and materials is what the line would be called. But that's where you would put curriculum. That's where you put any, like if they need more playground balls or if they need hula hoops or
Right.
jump ropes or whatever, right? That all goes into that category. We would also allow for salary and benefits. So if they wanted to give a teacher a stipend for doing more work, they could do that. Or bring someone on part-time, that would be allowable. Yeah, so there's a lot they can do.
Okay. Okay. Board Member Green, do you have additional questions, or should we work kind of back through the rule a little bit? So if there's any other.
No. Thank
But-
you. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate you answering those questions and letting me have a little bit of time because it does help clarify maybe some of the ads that have been, some of the amendments that we adopted in that last meeting. So
Yeah, good. Okay, let's go up. Can we just go down the document, because some of these I highlighted in blue, but they aren't actually changes. They were originally there and I just made the error. I don't know if that makes any sense. Well, except for I guess it doesn't matter, right? Because we've accepted what's here unless someone wanted to change it. So
It was already in the existing first draft, and
Yeah.
it's highlighted in blue, it will remain the same.
yeah, you're right. So I don't need to worry about that.
Jenny, I have one of your
Yes, go
amendments
ahead.
I would love to amend. I think it's
Go ahead.
on line 72.
Okay.
Nope, 57. Got my,
Oh, I have an amendment there too. So maybe it's the same amendment. Go ahead.
well, I would like to put, so 50, you show 57 online. Can you scroll down just a tiny bit? Right there. I would love for it to say a plan for family engagement within the program goals. Watching when my family has had to do, I'll go back to my scouting days. We didn't have the parents doing it with the kids. We had the whole family doing it with the kids. When we had to do a fitness merit badge, we had one doing the jumping jacks, the other one doing the jumping jacks, the 4-year-old doing the jumping jacks, the 3-year-old doing the jumping jacks. So anyway, I'd like it to say
I think it's
family
great.
engagement.
Yep.
Okay, so I move to
So we're
amend,
changing parent involvement to family engagement.
yes, within the program. Yep.
Any additional discussion to that change? Okay. So on line 57, we would like, board member Wood would like to change, it would now read a plan for family engagement with the program goals. All those in favor? Aye.
I
Okay, that passes. Are there
Aye.
others? Oh, sorry. There are others that have amendments or suggestions? I have a couple, but I'll wait for any others that people have. If we could go to 71, let me see if this was one we already did. Sorry, 71. Oh, we need to put school policies or practices that support student physical health and nutrition. Something like that. So it would say school policies or practices that support student physical health and nutrition.
Yeah, I was just reading that line thinking it didn't sound quite right, ending with health by itself. Too.
And do you still want to remove wellness?
I think wellness can come out because
Okay, can you say that again?
yeah,
Sure.
so it would say, so we're just changing, so it says physical health already, so would strike wellness and put in and nutrition.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sorry, I probably didn't articulate that well.
No, I just was copying pasting and didn't hurt here. And then that's a period. Okay.
Yeah.
I think on the wellness piece, I lean towards including it and having both in there. Just I think that's just the term that is used often that encompasses a lot of the nutritional pieces and the physical
So it would say
well-being,
student physical health and nutrition
wellness, and nutrition.
Wait, one more time.
It would just say physical health, wellness, and nutrition. You don't have to accept my
Wellness, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if wellness is different or if it broadens it out. That's all I'm trying to keep it scoped to the parameters.
To me, I just wonder because this section says it deals with physical education criteria. Which, so I just wonder
I'm
how.
realizing we don't
Here-
need it in there because it's
here,
A, B,
Earl.
C, D, and
Oh,
E.
then it just needs to be physical health then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
physical health and
wellness.
No, just physical health is what I would put.
should it be support student nutrition and physical health, or is it just physical health?
D, I'm realizing we don't need this amendment because it's A, B, C,
Oh,
D.
Yeah.
D
is
has
nutrition,
nutrition.
Education.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessary.
So you're just deleting the whole.
Student.
I
Should
I
it, would
just-
it read
yep.
better to say a student's physical health? I don't know, something about the way it just says that support student physical health doesn't quite read grammatically to me, but I could be off.
A student's physical health, is that
Mm-hmm.
board? Yeah. Okay. Special
Or-
partner, you have your hand raised.
Yes, please. Physical education criteria is defined on line 27. I just would like to remind the committee that it does have a definition.
Oh,
It's physical education criteria is kind of weird. It doesn't just mean physical education. It means the core standards for either health or PE. It's measurable core standards.
What line are you on? Would you mind?
27.
Line 27.
Oh, 27.
So it's a little weird, but physical education criteria doesn't mean only physical education. I know it's weird.
okay.
So then should it be as written that school policies or practices that support student wellness? Because is wellness, our physical education criteria is beyond just the nutrition and the physical education. Is that why we have the wellness there? Is because we're saying we're going back to that broad category of physical education criteria? I
I
guess
don't
that's a
think we
Jody
wanted the broad
question.
category. That's why,
But that's a Jody question in terms of the
yeah.
definition of physical education criteria.
I mean, I think you could, right there is that you wanted the school policies and practices to support student in bring back the definition that's the physical education criteria. However, that does limit that it's because where that's defined as our core standards, that would not be recess, that would not necessarily be the presidential fitness test. So I think you could say that the policies and practices support student, I mean, physical health works. It's both, I mean, nutrition and fitness are
Yeah, but the
more
nutrition is
physical
up in
health.
B. That's where I made the
Yep.
mistake because we
I
referenced
think
it. Yeah.
I think that, and this is me as being in health education for 19 years. I think when you say physical health, it could be limiting to the social benefits of having active recess and participating in physical education programs. Because I think social health is an absolute benefit for it. And then when we're more physically healthy, we're more mentally healthy, and that goes back to our health triangle that all of our health standards evolve around. So I think that you could say health and fitness right there. There's a lot of ways that you could narrow it down without saying only physical health.
Okay. So you're
I
saying
like
maybe,
health and fitness. I think that could we just take out the physical that supports student health and fitness? Does it need the word physical? Because we've got physical at the top of that section on 64, line 64.
So do we have a problem with wellness? Help me understand what I'm
it
missing here. We have a
broadens it
problem
out.
with wellness?
The wellness policies are normally they sit with physical and nutrition, but they also are parking your car, letting your car run while you're dropping your student off. When I looked at those, and I understand that that was a broad thing, but I think it broadens it out where if we're trying to keep it narrowly scoped, then we start opening it up broader. And those already have to be done in the school. There are things that already have to be done. You have to provide medications a certain way. You have to do CPR, right? Those are already, so this really tries to, in my view, stay focused on the intent so it doesn't become so broad that it really doesn't mean what we intended it to mean. At least that's the way I would like to see it, but I'm open to board members here. Yes, go ahead.
Candace Dentger, Arts and Wellness Coordinator. You might also consider saying health and physical activity, because that narrows it down a little bit more from wellness to physical activity, but it keeps it broad to the recess piece, or doing tests or things like that. So it narrows it down, but still keeps it a little bit broad for them to make those definite goals around that.
Board Member Brenton, does that sound like, do you want to?
Yes, I like that. So
Let's do
get
student,
wording.
remove physical, put health and physical activity.
Yeah.
And I think the discussion around the word wellness is kind of stems back to where my original question was. My first one was about studying the rural health transformation, program. Is that it's got a lot of stuff. You mentioned that it's in all different sorts of you know agencies and programs that are being implemented there. So I'm just wondering what our lane is here in our involvement, and if we're making sure that we are keeping it aligned to that specific lane. So wellness definitely broadens it out to the full scope, in my opinion. And what I'm reading from their site itself is that broader application. So anyway, I think the clarity is probably fruitful.
Okay. Board Member Britton, are you good with that wording?
Mhm.
then?
Yes.
I just,
Okay.
I,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
just have a question now. What is student
Yes.
health? Sorry. Is that like nutritional health or just health? Like we're healthy, our body's healthy, we're eating healthy, we're physically healthy. Is student health like also the mentally healthy, psychologically healthy, emotionally healthy, spiritually healthy? Like, I'm just wondering how broad that might imply. And if it's clear enough, great. If we feel like we still need to work on that, just wondering, we might need to define student health. At least somebody reading this, will they understand what we meant by student health?
I think so. As I keep reading through, I don't think it goes anywhere else other than physical health, physical activity where appropriate, measurable, evidence-based. If you look at the lines that precede and what's above, where it talks about nutrition, standards-based physical education. But I would ask Jody, like, but I think it seems clear to me.
Did you want me to answer that? Sorry.
Yes, please, Jody.
Yeah, go ahead.
What would you say?
I think that the way that it's been revised, I think it's clear. I think it's clear that the focus needs to be going back to that physical education criteria. It's tied to the core standards, but we're also saying physical activity, which then brings in the recess. It brings in the presidential fitness test that we're going to implement as well. I think it's really clear. I mean, that's my opinion. I think it's clear.
Board Member Green, do you have any suggestion there?
No, I'm just asking.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if we were trying to keep it towards, nutritional, and maybe it would be student nutritional health and physical activity, if we wanted to be that specific. If we feel that the physical or the student health implies that, and keeps it within its scope. And I'm also seeing Miss Stinger raising her hand.
Go ahead. Thank you.
I looked it up in the grant just to help make sure we're, addressing that. And it does say strengthen physical activity and nutrition in schools as like the goal title. And so that nutrition piece is a little bit more aligned with the Golden Medal Schools application. That doesn't mean there can't be other pieces that is looked at the board, at the board and adding on to that. But that nutrition piece is a focus on that. In the grant.
Maybe we do need, we've come full circle. Support
But health
nutrition
also
and
gives
physical
flexibility.
activity, right?
So, I mean, would we do support nutritional health and physical activity?
Yeah, we could do that.
Do I need to make a motion or we just change it?
You want student
No
there
question.
first? You want student nutritional health? Or no student?
Student, leave student.
Yeah, I think leave it in.
Okay.
Once again, we've come full circle here. That's good.
Okay, that's why we're here.
That's where it's good. Okay, any more discussion before we vote on this one? Okay, so we're changing line 71 to read school practices, policies and practices that support student nutritional health and physical activity. Okay, all those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. I have just one more on 91. And maybe I'll seek a clarification, but I also wanted to maybe make an amendment to that. So I would recommend that, let's see, let me see where this is at. So okay, so we are looking at, does that line up right? Is it 2?
There shouldn't be 2 E's
I
on line
know.
91. That's a technical.
And it goes A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, E. And I just, maybe your thing's over what I'm supposed to be looking at.
Well, the five is A, B, C, D,
Sorry, I
E,
did not
and
see the 5 because
6.
it has the,
There's an
oh,
erroneous
it's not
E,
yours,
that's
it's mine.
91.
I have my thing over it, sorry.
91 shouldn't have two E's repeating themselves. There's just one E there.
Okay, so this is saying the superintendent shall award funds for participating schools based on demonstrated need for improvement, the extent to which proposed goals are measurable and achievable, the use of evidence-based strategies, the quality and feasibility of the implementation plan. And I would suggest 2 things here. One, is it mandated that we're going to give it to them if they have partnerships and community support? What if
May I answer
it's
that?
a small school? I'm just wondering if this needs to be a may or if. Does that make sense? Instead of they have to have that in order to qualify, it needs to be a may depending on where the school is located. It may. Is that something that we can wiggle with or not?
So we can't wiggle a lot. But we are not saying, at least in this rule, right, the way the rule reads right now, we're not telling them what those partnerships need to look like or what the community support. So we're not saying who it's with. We're not defining that for them. We're saying
Okay.
you have to have engagement with people outside of the school. And in most cases, it's probably families. But in some schools, so for example, Tooele, San Juan, they will be required to engage with their tribal nations because that is a requirement from CMS that we are supporting our tribal students with this as well. So that
Can
will be
we
a requirement in those areas. And I don't know, I
Yeah.
listed 2 and there's
Can
7,
we
but
put it, would it be all right then, Jody, if we could put that parent engagement piece in here as well, so that it's part of
absolutely.
the contract piece? So it would be partnerships, presence of partnerships, family engagement, or community support, maybe? Does that read right?
Can I
Yeah.
ask clarification on that? Because this is actually something that I had a question about from the HB 36 itself. So it's on line 163. So it is, hold on, backtrack here. Anyway, I'll just read it. It's C, establish, it says select eligible schools to participate in the program, prioritizing schools that, and it has A, B, and C, says establish partnerships with local entities to support student health and wellness. So that's actually built into the law, and I was wondering that. So it seems that if they were to be prioritized, that they would have that written into their application or whatnot. And I was wondering too, what would that look like? It does say C, that establish partnerships with local entities to support student health and wellness. So I don't know if it's local gyms. I don't know if it's food distributors. I don't know if it's, what did they mean when they wrote that? And maybe somebody knows. Because it seems to me that would have to be that they, like, if they want this, they're going to have that built into their policy. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I pulled up the grant application to just make sure I looked at the language because I knew it was in there. And it's part of the key performance objectives that talks about region-based linkages between healthcare and social service providers. So it's kind of those regional health organizations and partnerships as part of that alignment with that. And again, this is kind of a bigger strategic goal about making sure that those are connected to the rural health organizations to help support that. It's on the main strategic goal of make rural America healthy again. And that's on page 19 of the larger Utah Rural Health Transformation Program summary.
Okay. So do you see the need, like, have we seen how that's been built out or how they recommend like presenting that or creating that? You mentioned social service, the social service networks, or are there other ones that fall underneath the kind of the out all the other places that the main grant is also going to? And then that would be built into the what the school is partnering with as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. And Board Member Green, this might not completely answer your question, but I think one of the biggest entities that will be of support for student health and wellness, I think there's two.
Mhm.
First is the RESAs, our Regional Education Service, whatever the A stands for, but the service
Agencies.
centers. Thank you, Deputy Superintendent. um, I think they are going to be key. I know that the news specifically, so Northern Education, they when I mentioned that there are some very excited schools, news is one, they're not a school, they're the service center, but they're very excited about it. And they've had a lot of conversation looking into this. So I think our RESAs are one of those entities. And I think the other one is your local health departments, because the local health departments are also supporting the larger rural health transformation program. But local health departments have a lot of educators as well. And I think that they're going to be a great resource. They also have a lot of equipment, and a lot of people don't know this. So, anyone who is listening in, here's a fun fact for you. Our local health departments have equipment that can be rented for free. So they will let you borrow equipment to run a physical education program or a before or after school program or active recess. So our local health departments have a lot of resources available already, and they have a lot of very equipped people that can help train. So I think that is another local entity that supports student health and wellness. And I don't know this, so it is a little of an assumption that that is where they were leaning when this was written into their narrative in the first place, was that they wanted their local health departments to help support the program. And that I'm saying that with the knowledge of I've been working with our health department, the state department, and the local for the 9 years that I've been at USBE. And so my knowledge of having really close working relationships with the health departments, I would really put a lot of I feel very I feel pretty confident that it would be one of the entities that is meant on that line.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we comfortable with adding the family engagement in? Did you want to make any other recommendation there, Board Member Green?
No, I like adding, the family engagement.
Okay. Okay. So the motion would be to add on line 91 family engagement to that particular line. All those in favor?
One quick question.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I love the addition. However, is that a requirement for either are you doing something over and above the actual requirement of the law and the application by adding it in? Because the law doesn't state family engagement. Well, I love the act of it, but you are now adding an additional practice that I don't see as required.
I think it's an or, but we're adding it in as an or. It's one of those three things. But let's take, what was the line again, Board Member Green, that you said you were looking at?
It was 163, so it says double I. Select eligible schools to participate in the program, prioritizing schools that A, demonstrate the greatest need for health improvement, B, submit an application in accordance with Section 4 that outlines measurable health goals and evidence-based strategies, and C, establish partnerships with local entities to support student health and wellness.
So it's that local entities piece that we have the question around, right?
Yeah.
Whether
And,
family engagement is local entities.
And the way that I read this also, it says the presence of partnerships. And so presence of partnerships, does that mean that, like our local health departments have, advertising within the schools? Is that what that line implies?
I don't know if I have a different perspective on this, but I see all of these partnerships and like the community groups and everyone coming together and supporting is sort of like, the Intermountain Health, they provide a free bike helmet to literally anyone who asks. Like they're like, hey, if you want a bike helmet, we want you to be safe. We know that there's a huge risk and a lot of kids get hurt by not wearing helmets. So we'll give you free helmets for every kid who asks for it, right? Like those are the type of health and wellness partnerships that I see here. So I just want to make sure we're not limiting that in any way, but I think that, it's like the idea that we have I always see our schools as a major piece of our community, right? Like it's a community epicenter in a lot of ways. And that includes partnerships and benefits with families and with community organizations and local nonprofits that all come together to help fulfill all these requirements and such in the grant and all the requirements we have in the law too.
No, I understand. I just want to understand what is being said and what it is that we're reading here, what it looks like when it gets in the school. And so what is presence of partnerships? Because then I have to say, what does the presence of family engagement mean when it comes to physical education and the nutrition part of it? I obviously like including family engagement. And I think Member Wood gave a great example of the why for that. It's a not just your community, but your family, your immediate family, where that support can strengthen yourself, and then that spills out into our communities. So it kind of sets things right. But I see.
Yeah, Jennifer Wadsworth, do you have something to add?
So we do have AAG down on the call if we want to check in just legally to see if we are going above code and what it's requiring. But I think, in my opinion, which is not a legal opinion, the broad term of local entity, I don't see a reason why that couldn't include our families. But again, AAG down is here.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm not seeing you, but go ahead and weigh in if you'd like to, if you've got a thought on that.
I'm in agreement. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cheryl, I'm in agreement with Ms. Wadsworth on this. I think that you can use that term more broadly like that as well.
Okay. All right. Any additional discussion to this or recommendation on that? Okay. All right. So the recommendation on line 91 is to add family engagement to that line. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And that passes unanimously. I do have, this is my last question. I know I said the last one was, so apologize, you guys. I just had a question where this is the breakdown of what we're prioritizing. I wonder if we just need one item in there that says what's the lineup? Okay, so the superintendent shall award funds for participating schools based on, I wonder if we need something that actually says physical fitness and nutrition in schools, prioritizing physical fitness and nutrition in schools, because this is the requirement where we're going to go check, 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 check. We've highlighted it up above, but where this is where we're going to be prioritizing. Anybody think that needs to be there, or does it feel like it's explained enough? We're good. No one's speaking. So
What line are you, where are you
I'm
at?
just asking, adding a new, like would put maybe an F on here at after 91 that just says prioritizes physical fitness and nutrition in schools. It's merely just reiterating what we've been saying all along. Yes.
So this gets a little bit tricky with the law because it says on line 164 of HB 36 that the subject to legislative appropriations award the funds equally between each eligible school the state board selects under subsection 3B. So that equally has been something we've kind of had to navigate through because it's an interesting term in terms of like what you would grant funding for. And so that's maybe why it wasn't included. Like we also can't do that with tribal.
I see. I see what you're saying.
Equal. We have to fund it equally.
we couldn't put in there and focus it and has a primary focus on nutrition and physical fitness as one of the
May I
main.
answer that?
Yes.
So we do have to distribute funds equally. That was added into HB 36. We can, but what we do control, which is where this prioritization list comes from, is what we are saying they can use those funds towards. So we are still prioritizing. We're not changing the amount of money they get. So they all get the same amount of money. And if they don't use, if
Am I on the right
well,
line? Am I on the same line as you guys? Are you on 91?
mhm.
Okay, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
I'm just kind of going back to, so you could here say, because the top of it is award funds for participating schools based on, and then these things. I think though, Chair Earl, you are saying the extent of which goals are measured and achievable. We addressed what the goals are above, so
Okay.
I think we're okay
That's what I'm saying
on
is I
that because,
wondered,
yep, I
I
think
wondered
that
if
we
it was
said what the
enough.
goals have to be already. But as far as the funding prioritization that was brought up, it is with if you're eligible or not, right? You
Okay,
have to have these
okay,
things to become eligible. And it's not that we're going to be saying, no, you can't have the money. It's you have to adjust your application to get the money because you have to focus on these things. If a school now came and said, well, we would really like to do ABC instead, you said we have to do these things, but actually we want to do this whole other thing, we would deny that application because that's not what these funds are for.
okay. And that's what I was just wondering if it need to be a little bit more direct or if the goals where we had articulated them above does address that. And I feel like you're probably right on that. I think that gets us to where we need to be. Okay, any other recommendations on this rule? We've been
I
Yes,
have one more.
Board
And
Member
it,
Green.
okay, and this is just to maybe align. I've got these side by side. So HB 36, again, on line 163 on C, it says establish partnerships. In our rule, it says, well, where are we at? The presence of. So can you explain how we shifted from established to the presence of? I need to understand what we're asking here. They're showing as two different actions.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, it's me
Jennifer?
again.
Yeah.
So in drafting the rule, we don't like to bring the wording directly from code. More often than not, we want it to have similar wording that is on that same path. So the presence of and establishing, my understanding is that code and legal wise, that does actually cover our bases. So if you have the presence of that relationship, it has been established. Does that make sense? And we are welcome to change it. Definitely not telling you not to change it, but in terms of the legal wording of the rule and the legal wording of the code, they do mean the same thing. And again, AAG Doan is here if we need to check in with her.
And I'm wondering, does that mean like a physical presence again, as in like a flyer, as in like an office space, as a little clinic? Like what does presence mean?
When we were drafting, we simply meant that it exists. So it has been established. It does exist. It doesn't mean that there's somebody present in the school. It's the presence of the relationship. It has been established.
So that really, no, that's very helpful. Thank you. So
Yeah.
because say this, the schools will be acquiring this grant, then that opens up the door to formally to start linking hands with other government organizations that have also taken this grant.
Yes.
We're
So
coming full
established that
circle with this establishment.
Yeah.
Through the different grant channels.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you good with that then? Okay. Okay. I am looking for a motion for this rule then.
Yeah, I'm happy to make that. Oops, let me see. I just need to get it big enough that I can read it. Can I move that the committee approve R277-917 Gold Medal Schools Pilot Program, Earl Draft 1, as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading?
Okay. Any discussion? All right, so the motion before the committee is that the committee approve R277917 Gold Medal Schools Pilot Program, Earl Draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm an A.
You're a nay? Okay, so that was 4 in favor, and then Board Member Green is a nay. Okay, let's move to our next item. I'm going to watch the time on this one a little bit, only because we do need to get to our, we have a couple things we do need to get to also. So let's go ahead with number 4, which is R277404, requirements for assessment of student achievement. And who is presenting that one?
I plan to begin it and then
Okay.
pass it on, if that's all right.
Perfect.
For the deeper questions. So again, Jennifer Wadsworth, Policy Advisor. So this one was linked to one that we passed out in the last committee meeting for standards and assessment. It was a result of HB 502 and talking about the test out classes. So what we've gone ahead and done is we added the definition of core classes here as well, like we did with 705, which passed through committee and is on its way to the board. And we removed the requirement for our adult students to take the civics test. That was still in here as well. Oh, actually, it was the child's. So this is on line 182. The parent could exempt a child from the basic civic test. That no longer exists. That was gone as of the 2025 legislative session. So we removed that. But the biggest change you're going to see here is the addition of section 10. And if you'll notice on the motion document, I have actually a motion that needs to be made if you feel that it's appropriate. What this section is outlining is where these test out options are coming from. And the way that this is currently worded was confusing to some of our LEA in-house counsel and our superintendents. And so we have a secondary draft for your opinion just of section 10 that's there on the motions document that makes it very clear that these test out options are coming directly from USBE. They're not to be created by the LEAs. They're not to be altered by the LEAs, and the LEAs need to give those test out options in a specific way. So if there's any questions on that, I am here.
Okay. Okay, so you're asking us to move these provisions here? Okay,
Section
let
10
me,
there. Yeah, and we are welcome to read through it because it is more than what is in the draft. But again, the feedback we had from the LEAs was a lot of confusion as to whether or not they could still use their own options, which they're currently doing.
and would you mind if I read through it? I'm just going to read it out loud if that's
Yeah.
okay with the body, just because I have a number of other questions and this may answer those that I had in my notes from last week. So, okay, so let's see, beginning with the 2027-2028 school year, and in accordance with section 53E 4209, the superintendent shall develop and provide all assessments and portfolio-based demonstrations of mastery used in statewide test-out options for core classes. Establish uniform procedures, timeline, scoring criteria, and security requirements for administration of test-out assessments and portfolio-based demonstrations of mastery. Establish academic proficiency standards aligned with the state core standards for each statewide test-out option, and ensure that test-out assessments and portfolio-based demonstrations of mastery are applied consistently across all LEA or local education agencies. Test-out assessments and portfolio demonstrations of mastery developed by the superintendent under section 1 shall be the exclusive methods used for a student to demonstrate proficiency for purposes of earning credit without course enrollment in a core class. That's where I'm going to have the big question in a minute. An LEA shall offer students the statewide test out options established by the superintendent, administer the statewide test out assessments and portfolio-based demonstrations of mastery provided by the superintendent, comply with all procedures, timelines, score criteria, and security requirements established by the superintendent, and ensure the administration of test-out assessments and portfolio-based demonstrations of mastery does not create barrier to student participation. An LEA may not develop, modify, substitute, or independently score any assessment or portfolio demonstration of mastery for the statewide test-out option for a core class, or impose additional requirements that restrict or limit a student's ability to participate in a statewide test-out option. An LEA shall administer test-out assessments and portfolio-based demonstration of mastery in a manner that maintains the validity, reliability, fairness, and security of the assessment process consistent with this rule. And this standard test administration testing ethics policy incorporated by reference. An LEA shall notify students and parents annually if the available state test out option of the state test out options, applicable timelines, deadlines, and procedures for participation. This is my question. In R277700, it says a student may demonstrate competency to satisfy course requirements consistent with section, which is the core. So we're going to have to change another rule with this. Did we move 700 the other day? No,
got 700. No, we did 705. Yeah.
Okay. And then in 705, it does say an LEA shall provide various methods for a student to earn credit from a non-accredited source, coursework, or education provider, including satisfaction of coursework by demonstrated competency as evaluated by the LEA. Assessment is proctored, and determined at the school level, or we're saying that that's no longer available.
Yes, so it is still proctored at that school level, and the LEAs do get that from us, or they will be getting that from us. But what's changing is the LEAs are no longer allowed to use their own test out option. There will be a statewide test out option. And Megan, feel free to jump in on that.
Are we creating that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. Is Megan there?
I am. Megan Everett, Director of Teaching and Learning.
Okay.
So, right, we have the obligation by the fall of 2028. So that has not been fully developed, but the idea is that, yes, we will be in charge of some sort of test out option for each of those core classes that we will develop.
So it's not just available for a test out option, we're the only test out option. Is that?
And this is coming about because the packets have gone away, right? Is this a replacement or no?
So
No, this is from Welton's bill.
Oh,
I shouldn't have jumped in.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is actually separate from the packets. So what Representative Welton was in listening to his intent when it was presented to committee and on the floor, what he's hoping is that students who are not attending school because they're bored, this is their way of testing out of classes that they don't feel like they need to take because they've already mastered those classes. So they'll come back to school to take classes that are more relevant to them because they can test out of classes they don't feel are relevant or they've mastered. So it's more attendance based randomly.
Okay. I feel like we have two competing rules, right?
So we do have, and again, in 705, I do believe that we made the amendments to change it. I can go in and look at that. But in 700, it will need to be amended. It is on our list to come to committee. We are seeing, I think, 5 rules are coming to committee that are all based on changes from HB 502. So it's kind of a little domino effect that as we do them, they just filter through.
So what is the feedback then you said was from the LEAs?
So the original draft that's uploaded to Civic Clerk, when we presented that to the LEAs, there was still some confusion as to who would be providing the test out option. If it would be them, if they could still use what they had, if it was coming directly from us. And so the hope with this new language presented on this motions document is that there's no more confusion. It's very clear. It's a statewide option. LEAs are meant to proctor it and to make parents aware of it, but we will be providing that and they can get it directly from us.
Okay.
So will we also be having some sort of, will the districts have some sort of testing center where the students take the test, kind of like you do in college, so that we know they're not cheating their way through it? Or is that something we also have to come up with and decide?
No. So currently they do already have in place. A lot of LEAs do have a test out option that they are providing based on something they've ever purchased or created themselves.
Okay.
So we do have it in place and we've referenced it here, the rules that talk about what needs to be done with testing. It's incorporated in reference in, I forgot the rule number, but I know it's there, 404. So there is a testing ethics policy. But in terms of everything else, I think our main lift, and again, Megan can give more information on this, the main lift is going to be actually creating the test out and the portfolio-based options.
And the law said, I'm just trying to clarify again, once again, the law is indicating that it's just going to be, there should only be one method. Or is the law just saying we have an available method?
So in terms of testing out, if a student comes to an LEA and says, I don't want to take English 11, I am amazing at English. I feel like if I take a test, I can show you that I'm incredibly competent at this. Then the ability for them to take that test and not take the class is what this is trying to address. There is a portfolio-based demonstration, and Megan can maybe speak more to that because my understanding of that is more limited than it is with the test out option. But from what I understand, it's either take the class or do one of those options to not have to take the test, but still receive the credit on your diploma.
Okay. I'm not sure where I stand on this, so.
Can you scroll up to the top of this policy? There was a question, development. Okay, I'm not sure what I read at the top. There was a question I had, but it's not in there. So thank you. I guess I do have a question. How does this relate, as Joanne talked about, the packet method? Because that is a way for them to get original credit, isn't it?
You can still receive original credit through a packet, but it's considered more of a course, my understanding, because you still have to take the course by completing.
Okay. Oh, there was the line in start two where it says without course enrollment. So with the packet, you are still enrolling in a course, and
Yeah.
that is giving you a packet, and that is how you're getting your original credit.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, I'm going to point out that Sydney is in here and she is absolutely incredible at any questions you may have. So if there's anything that I am not reaching that you feel like you need more information, I will not be offended if you need Sydney.
I guess I've just seen where families have used the portfolio method and I just don't know if the state becomes, you only can do it this way. And maybe I'm just not understanding that fully, where they've been able to come in and say, this is what I did, this is what I've, you know what I mean? But it's only for these 4 classes, right? Is there only 4 classes, math?
All in the classes defined as core classes in code. It's a little bit tricky because it does say another course required for high school graduation as described in, and then they have to go to the code. So if the code changes, it may change with the code, but currently it is English, math, science, social studies.
Okay.
So that would be more than 4 because social studies encompasses government, geography, world history, right? US
Only
history.
if it's required for graduation. So
Okay.
yes, it wouldn't cover an elective, but it would cover a graduation requirement.
So do we need to leave in 705 the provisions that allow an LEA to do it with other courses? To be able to have them earn credit with other courses that are not? Does that make sense?
I think I'm understanding. It does still allow them, when you mean with other courses, do you
Well,
mean
like an elective course that as a student, maybe let's say singing or something, where they've taken some maybe private lessons and they have demonstrated, you know, in a different way, and they'd like credit for the hours and things they put in for that. So an
So
example,
my
yeah.
understanding of the policy is that an LEA could still choose to do that for an election, for an elected credit, an elective credit. But for the core classes that are required for graduation, only this test out option from the state would apply. So you do have to have an arts credit to graduate, but that's not included in the core classes. So if a student came to an LEA and said, I'm actually a professional singer, it would be up to the LEA to decide if they want to take portfolio-based demonstration of mastery, but they
Okay.
could not apply a state test-wide test out option for that. Statewide test
Right.
out option.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. We didn't eliminate any language that wouldn't allow that, right?
No, that's still there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody Want to move this forward? We'd have to amend.
Sure, if you want to tee up the language, you can do that.
So I think it's purple there.
So do I read the whole thing that you already read?
The whole thing again, or can we say as read?
I think we can say as read. I think you could just say strike section 10 and replace it with the following, and then we'll indicate that it's the new section 10 that was read earlier.
And can I just ask, just to verify again, what law is this? What code is, where is this coming from again? I just need the number.
HB 502.
Thank you. Got it.
Okay, I move that the committee strike section 10 and replace it with what was previously read.
Okay, so the motion before the committee is the committee strike section 10. Can someone go up a little bit so I make sure I'm. Oh, sorry, maybe you're making a motion. Okay. The committee strike section 10 and replace it with the following, which was read earlier. This is related to 53E4209. All those in favor of adding this language and strike?
Aye.
Okay, I'm a no, but I'm just uncertain is my reason why I'm still got a lot I want to compare before next month, but.
And I abstain.
Okay, so that passed 3-2, 1 abstention by Board Member Green and 1 no by Board Member Earl. So it passed with Board Member Wood, Rill, and Brinton. And then we have a motion for, unless there's any other amendments people had. Let me do a quick look at my notes here. I did have one recommendation, but I think I've long exited out of wherever I was. So, okay. Is there a motion that anybody wants to move forward?
A motion that Representative Welton comes in and we explain to him how many rules are impacted every time he passes a bill. I'm joking.
And I
can
find
tell
that
them that
out of order.
personally.
It's out of order.
I can tell him that personally. Just a motion that the committee approve R277404 requirements for assessment of student achievement draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, the motion for the committee is that the committee continue and approve R277404 requirements for assessments of student achievement draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And I'm going to do no. So that passes 3 in favor. Board Member Wood, Rill, and Brinton. Board Member Earl is a no, and Board Member Green is an abstention. And I think I've just got to get a little bit more information to make sure. So thank you for the work on that. Okay. Let's see what is next on our agenda. Next item is the Targeted Standards Review, Secondary Social Studies. And who is presenting this for us?
I'm guessing me.
Okay. We're going to say yes on that.
Okay, great. Megan Everett, Director for Teaching and Learning. So due to the passage of HB 312, there are some specific topics and concepts in social studies that need to be added to our secondary standards. The reason that we are submitting both what a full review and what a targeted review might look like is because the bill requires this to be ready for teachers in fall of 2028. It is currently summer of 2026. So that would be a very fast full review, given kind of the length of time that full reviews have taken in the last couple of iterations. And so what we did was took what a targeted timeline might look like and what a full timeline might look like, and kind of put forward both of those for consideration. We'll obviously get done whichever one the board decides to move forward with, but that's why you see a couple different timelines there to consider. The social studies standards for high school were last redone about 10 years ago, so it has been a minute. The K-6 standards were done more recently. And then our social studies specialist, Joanna Sorensen, went through and took the things that are required in the new legislation and looked at our current standards and made some suggestions. They are not what the writing committee would have to, or the board would have to go with, but what it could look like if a targeted revision were to happen, what we currently have in the standards, what pieces we're currently missing, and where they might get inserted.
All right. Any discussion to this? I have a pretty good idea where I'd like to head, but I'll kind of leave it open if anybody else wants to share any thoughts here. Board Member Brinton, are you just unmuted?
Just sorry. Yeah, I'm just unmuted. Sorry.
Okay. I would like to make the recommendation that on the elementary, that's the K through 6, we look at a targeted review. And on the 7th through 12th, that we engage in a review of the standards, a more formal review. So in the elementary grades, that's the K through 6th grade, that we do a targeted review, and on the older grades that we do a full review.
Yeah, I would just like to, I'll speak in favor of that. I think that's a good plan with these.
And for those who don't obsessively follow along with our exciting content on the board, it was because we did just recently do. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
I just want to make sure people know. Yeah.
Yep. That is actually, they're just now starting to implement that this fall officially, right?
So that's why a targeted review of that would be better, because then we can just adjust based on the new laws that keep being passed. And then the 7 through 12 needs a full review.
Yeah. That's
because that hasn't been done since
2016, I believe, was the last implementation.
So what are those timelines then? So we would do K through 6 first, and then we would do, then naturally the 7 through 12 would be triggered just because of the time frame. Is that right?
I think
can speak to that a little bit. Yeah. With the targeted review for K-6, we'll definitely take a close look and make sure that there's nothing that needs to be inserted there. But in general, we're thinking that the K-6, most of the topics that were added are really
they're already
7 through 12 specific. They're much more likely to fall in there. So we'll take a really close look. But I would say that they're kind of going at the same time, or starting at the same time at least. It may be that an adjustment in the K-6 isn't even really warranted at this point, because the topics that they ask for, like I say, are pretty high school specific.
Okay. Any other discussion on this item? Okay. If you want to go to the motion again. So the motion for the committee is that the board engage in a targeted review of the elementary K through 6 social studies standards, and a full review in the secondary 7 through 12 social studies standards, right? There we go. That's right. Is that correct? Anyone want to, that's the right term, right? Social studies standards? I'm not hearing otherwise, so it sounds like we're on track there. Okay, any other discussion to this? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Board Member Wood on still. Did someone hear her?
yes, sorry.
Okay, sorry if I did. You may have said it when someone else was speaking, so that's unanimous vote. So we will move that forward to the board. And our next item is a return to, if I remember right, we're back on our sensitive materials model policy update. And so we'll kind of just pick up where we were. We started making some revisions. And I think
I sent an email the beginning or towards the beginning of the meeting with just some questions that I had and some possible suggestions for some amendments for some clarity. And so I sent it to everybody on the committee and policy advisor Jennifer Wadsworth and Andrea, if you want to look at those.
okay.
Do you want me to read them?
Yeah, do you want to?
Okay, so
do
yeah,
your first motion
I
and then
did some searching with it against Utah law and also, just to see if we needed some clarity, but then also like to look at a couple of the LEA specific policies and contrast with those as well. So the first motion would just be to clarify with grandma and challenger privacies and move to amend section 4, which is what line? Let me see. So that if you have this section 4 is on page 5, the library materials review process. And so under the Utah code, formal appeals and complaints submitted to a public governing body are considered public records. So presenting this with our wording where it says confidential to the extent possible could risk misleading parents and creating a legal liability when a grandma request is filed. So I think it could be clarified to amend it by striking the phrase shall be kept confidential to the extent possible, and instead inserting shall be handled in accordance with the Government Records Access and Management Act, in parentheses, grandma, noting that formal challenge documentation may be subject to public records requests.
And I'm fine with this change here. And the reason that I think we started talking about last time about the grammar request because of the work it takes to I think that if someone wants to know a list of all of the materials that are in the library, that this it seemed like the better route to go is they can request it through grandma.
although that's not this provision right here. This would be confidentiality, right? That this
Oh,
is
I thought we were talking on the part that
well, we
Well,
can't
it's telling
address that piece
parents,
too,
I guess this section was talking about giving parents the belief that their requests or their challenges would be kept confidential where possible. But
oh, I get what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. Well,
so I don't
and
know.
I'm fine with
And like I said, I sent this to everybody just for discussion to see if you think this is helpful or.
Did you touch base with the AAG on this at all, Angela Doan, just to see if it's necessary or?
No, sorry, I did not.
Yeah, that's okay. Do you have opinion on that? Angela, are you on with us?
Age, you don't. I am on. I haven't looked into this. I wasn't aware that the board member Britton was raising this. If you give me a few minutes, I can look into it and then circle back.
Okay. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Should take a minute and look at that and see.
I guess my other question too for AAG Doan is is there someone internally has to be keeping track of who's requesting the process gets started on some materials because of the piece that says that you can't, if you have 3 unsuccessful.
Well, and I'm also kind of challenging that too, because I think that as I'm looking at that, it seems to be in conflict with the law. I know it's to try to avoid people spamming just tons and tons and tons of things,
Yeah.
but I don't think we can really limit it to 3. That could be a problem too, as I was searching.
That is the law. You can limit to 3 if they're unsuccessful.
Yeah.
That is the law. But you can't limit them to 3 unless it's
Just only 3. If they
unsuccessful
have 3 strikes and you're out, basically.
that year. is
Yeah,
what
that
the
year.
law says. Yeah, it's just that year.
And it says erroneous in there. I mean, it implies that a parent or stakeholder made a factual error.
So do we need to add a little bit more language in there?
Yeah, I was kind of looking at that to see if we could amend that and take out the word or strike erroneous and insert challenges that result in a final determination to retain the material without restriction. I mean, because, you know, I worry about.
Yeah, so how do
yeah.
you want to clean that up? That's fine. We can clean it up so that it's cleaned up closer to the law. So what did you say again, Joanne?
Okay. Let me get to the right place. Okay, I move to amend the section limiting annual challenges by striking the word erroneous and inserting challenges that result in a final determination to retain the material without restriction.
Okay.
And that just uses precise statutory language. Since the committee
Isn't the
decides
word
on-
erroneous in the law?
Is it?
Or is it in the rule? No,
I'm looking.
Is Davina around? She's probably knows even better than
Yeah, is Davina on
me,
here?
or Jenny probably knows too as much, but
I don't know about the
thought that
erroneous
word.
part. Let's see. So this is what it says. As used in this section, unsuccessful challenge means an allegation that a given instructional material constitutes sensitive material that the LEA concludes to be erroneous. It is.
Mm.
Either on direct or review or on appeal to the LEA governing board, resulting in the retention of a given instructional material.
Okay.
I thought I had heard that
Sure.
word
I just
before.
thought erroneous, doesn't erroneous imply the parent made a factual mistake where the committee's
Here, this is
overriding?
AAG, Joan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the term erroneous is used within the code, and it is for when it's an unsuccessful challenge by the parent asking for a review or an appeal of the sensitive material book. And so if it was determined that it was not erroneous, it was unsuccessful, so it was not erroneous. It's almost like a double negative that's being used here. And I would say to keep the word erroneous in the model policy. And then second, what board member Britton had asked previously related to the grammar language, that is acceptable. That would be fine to be changed as well.
Okay, so let's deal with erroneous and then we'll go back up to that.
So you're saying strike that, just keep erroneous and don't change the language there. Is this?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go back up to the original motion then that you had, or the amendment that you had given, which had to do with, there we go. So board member Britton had moved to amend the section limiting annual challenges by inserting. Is that where we are?
Yeah.
Okay, you wanted to change that, so we take out
That we
erroneous.
no, that we're striking the phrase shall be kept confidential to the extent possible.
So go up one more motion. Yep, there we go. There we go. Okay, so board member Britton moved to amend section 4 regarding the confidentiality of the challenger by striking the phrase shall be kept confidential to the extent possible and inserting shall be handled in accordance with the Government Records Access and Management Act, grandma, noting that formal challenge documentation may be subject to public records requests. Any more discussion to that? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
I
I
I think that passed unanimously. I didn't hear any opposition. All right, and then the other one needs to be left the way it is, if I understood our discussion. Is that correct? With the unsuccessful challenges. Okay.
Yeah,
You had another,
Correct.
you have another suggestion then?
Well, and I was wondering, as I was looking at streamlining the policy, if there, could I just ask about combining the subjective sensitive materials committee and the age appropriate review committee into a single materials reconsideration committee? Do we really need two?
I think it needs to be sensitive materials. You either go objective or subjective. I think adding a new name in there, it's already confusing with two.
Right.
And
I
that's
mean, it
kind of
doesn't
what-
have to be that name. I just wonder about a single committee versus having the two separate. So if there's a better way to do that, I just wanted to pose that.
So Board Member Britton, maybe you missed it in my recommended changes, but I took out the age
Oh.
appropriate and I actually made it into just subjective materials once it doesn't meet the
Okay.
threshold of objective, which would include the age appropriate provisions.
Okay,
We're
so that
trying
we
to-
did that last time. That's right.
Well, we haven't discussed it
Okay.
thoroughly. We were
Okay.
going to discuss that a little bit more, but that was a recommendation of this. If you wanted, if you're good with
That's
that.
okay. We could wait on that.
Okay. Did you have another recommendation?
There was, let's see. I'm just wondering about an initial review section to require the implementation of a standardized intake assessment checklist to determine a plausible claim.
I think it's there, but
Is
they
that
have an
in there?
initial review. Yeah. Let me look back up at the top.
Because it says the current text leaves the plausible claim determination highly subjective for the initial administrator, a binary checklist, as defined in code. I don't know, would it create a paper trail that would speed up the process if there was an initial assessment checklist?
I'm just looking back up to see. Am I missing something? In the lot has that initial piece and in our other model policy it does. Is that, or am I missing something here? In our,
Let's see.
Davina, are you on? Isn't there a provision for that initial review and it has to be by a couple of people from our role? That it's
Yes,
not
I
one-
am this Davina Southoff,
Yeah.
Library Media Specialist, Teaching and Learning. Yes, the initial review is in section 4, review process. Let's see. I'm looking at your screen. Let me look up. So it would be section 4. It starts, so where it says library materials review process, and then the initial review starts on number 4. 4A talks about it. 'Cause that's the
it-
beginning, and then it continues.
I think it's missing that initial. I mean, it says yes, but it's not what we have. What do we have in rule? Doesn't rule? Let me look.
It's number 8.
Number 8.
Would it be helpful to have an intake form that just is a checklist for those that are assigned to
Oh,
bring
yeah,
in
that's-
these reviews to go through quicker?
So, may I answer that? Is that, are you
Yes, go
asking
ahead.
me?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. So we actually do have a checklist that staff made as part of, resources and supports for LEAs to use. So there is something like that out there on our website currently. And I would say all 41 LEAs have been trained on that and shown those resources. So feedback I have received is that it's been very helpful.
Okay, so it's 8 and 9 that we're looking at under that section. I knew it was there. I'm like, I know it was there because I've read it once, but.
Okay.
And they'll create a case number for the review. So there is documentation. Is that kind of where you were concerned, maybe, Joanne, that wasn't going to be there?
Yeah, that maybe that, because I talked to somebody at our district who was over this, and he said it took so much time. It pretty much took all of his time just dealing with all this. So I just thought if there was anything to simplify and help them have a clearer process, but if there already is something in place, then.
Yeah, that addresses 9 addresses the plausible claim that the material constitutes such materials.
Okay. And then another, in the analysis I was doing, it just said we maybe could have some operational clarity and separation of duties if we restructured it into 2 distinct sections with library acquisition and curation protocols, and then a section B of reconsideration of challenged materials. So I would just ask Davina, is that something that would provide clarity? And the rationale it was given was that draft 2, it intertwines the rules for buying new books with rules for dealing with complaints on existing books. So if we separated them, would that ensure that everyday library operations are not choked by highly specific legal requirements of challenges?
Yeah, go ahead. You're muted if you're speaking.
Yeah. So in looking at that request, so it looks like Section A, library acquisition and curation protocols would then house number I, library policy, II, selection, and III, library collection maintenance. And then your new Section B would be reconsideration of challenged materials, which would then be IV, library materials review process, V, appeals process, and VI, statewide removal. So reconsideration would be those second 3 sections, and library acquisition and protocols would be the first 3 sections. Is that what you're asking? Just separate it into the 2? That would be a simple thing to do.
So I just present it to, I guess, the committee for feedback to see what you think about that. And
So are you looking at changing just the titles? I'm just trying to.
Honestly, from my perspective, it does get pretty blurry. I see where Member Britton's coming from, because it does get blurry and the law is so confusing. And as we know, we spent a lot of time on the rule. And so because because it is very different, they're very distinct and different in some ways. I think it might be a good idea if it's not too much for staff to reorganize it in that way. And it might make it easier for LEAs to follow and understand as well. And be like, what are we doing right now? We're doing this. We're how to figure out of a removal, a purchase, or whatever it is in different areas rather than blending them all together.
I'm happy to make that change.
Okay, I'm still trying to understand the change. Do you mind just reiterating it one more time so I'm very clear on what it looks like? So what would it be? You've got it listed here, but what would it be on our document? What would it look like? We would separate out, because we've got, right now we have selection of materials for library collection. And we have, then after that, we have, library collection maintenance. So what is
so
that?
maybe it would be in the library. I guess does the library maintenance section do that already enough from the intake?
So may I ask a clarifying question just to make sure I understand the request? So we want to make sure that it's clear when a library staff and or LEA administration are, navigating the library, selecting materials and maintaining the collection. And then we also want them to have a clear, like, this is what we're doing when we're reconsidering the materials. So that'd be two different sections. And the way I read the policy, the model policy draft as it is right now, that first section which would be maintaining the library collection, selecting the collection, would be the first three sections of our current draft. So and I, not to quote sensitive materials legislation, because
Is
I
that
say that a
1, 2,
lot
and
too.
3? That's Roman numerals, right? 1,
Right,
2,
right.
3. Okay.
Yep. So I is library policy, II is selection for materials, and III is library collection maintenance. So those first three sections would be subheaded, not a word, underneath the section A titled Library Acquisition and Curation Protocols, or something similar, however you want to title that. And then our second new section, section B, would be the reconsideration of materials. And that's where we would house the last three pieces of our current draft model policy, which is IV, Roman numeral 4, library materials review process, Roman numeral 5, appeals process, and Roman numeral 6, statewide removal and reporting. So we're basically breaking up the model policy draft that we're looking at today into two pieces. The first half would be basically selecting and maintaining a collection, and the second half would be reconsidering materials that are in the library. Does that sound like what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you think that's a clarity, I mean, as I was looking at analysis and running it through, that was a suggestion that I thought could be made more clear. But if you feel like the feedback you're getting from the field is this is all fine and it's not too muddied,
I think that's okay to do. I think that would give some higher level headings to what we're kind of looking at. So I think in my opinion, that would be fine. And you did mention maybe just making sure that anything with buying new books isn't part of the reconsideration. I definitely can re-review and make sure that we're not seeing any of that in the reconsideration section, and it's only showing up in the selection of materials section.
and as they're buying new books, that's already defined that they're not putting in any books that are off limits, right? I mean, that's already clear. So I think to me, that seems to provide more clarity.
Makes it easier to follow. Remember, Chair Earl?
Yes.
I'm wondering what our timeline is on this, because it feels like there's a couple parts. So I had a bunch of amendments. Member Britton has some amendments and some adjustments. And we also I kept in the age appropriateness, but then you took out the age appropriateness. So I wonder if we have it reconstructed without the age appropriateness with the things that we've already amended, and then work from that at another meeting with it all reorganized and cleaned up.
Do we have to have this by July? That's the question. No? Yes?
No. Davina's saying no with her head movement, unless my eyes are shaking. Because I just think we're now we're kind of
updating all their stuff now, right? So that does add a interesting provision there. So
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the majority, I would say, okay, so 2024, we had the new legislation, HB 29. And after that time, I held one-on-ones with every LEA across the state, I would say district, and then a fair amount of charter schools. And we went through all of the things that they need to change based on that legislation, and they updated their policies. We had the statute code changes and all of the things that happened at that time. So the majority of LEAs already updated their policies. And so what happened this legislative session that changes is the obscene animal abuse piece. And so that information's gone out to LEAs that if they already have cited the statute in their current LEA policy, then really it's just a matter of me making sure that they understand that this is now a piece that they need to think about when they're thinking about sensitive materials. It's one small change that happened in this legislative session. So I don't anticipate that many, if any, LEAs are going to be updating their model policy or their policies this summer because they made so many changes to be aligned with HB 29. So
And-
if the committee feels like they want to take some extra time to get, to do the
Okay.
model policy to the degree that you would like to, then I wouldn't feel rushed given all of that's happened up until this moment.
Now, I do have a question, because on ours, there was a pretty big, we didn't fix it kind of thing. And that had to do with the who can challenge. Are you finding that everybody got that right on theirs and they're not looking to ours to influence that?
I'm sorry, which piece were you talking
Well, it's
about?
the piece about a student in the LEA, not a student in the school, can actually challenge, or a parent in the LEA, not necessarily the school. Our current policy did not reflect that accurately.
I believe that LEAs are aware that a student in their
Okay, they
school
did get
can
that
make
correct
a
then.
challenge, correct? Yes.
Well,
No, it's a parent of a student in the LEA period. It does not have to be at that school where they're challenging, but it wasn't written that way.
Yeah, but you're saying that you feel like they did get that right. They weren't just relying on our model
I have
policy.
had numerous conversations with LEAs where that question has come up,
Okay.
and that one of the recommendations has been that it's no longer a school-based challenge. It now is a district challenge. Like
I
if a
see.
book is challenged anywhere in the district, it needs to be reviewed at a district level because it now affects the entire district. The title would then effectively be removed across the district, not in just the school. So
Okay,
I
so
feel confident that those conversations have been had sufficiently.
okay. I think we can keep moving forward with recommendations, and when we get close to our time, I do feel like we could get a cleaned up copy then for next month based on what was said here. Do you as a committee feel that is that the direction you want to go? Can I just get some feedback from committee
I know
members?
Sarah said she had a lot of amendments too, and we're only scheduled to go for another 15 minutes. So you guys tell me. I don't want to dominate. I don't need to dominate, but
Yeah,
I did.
just think, oh, go ahead, Joanna.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I just think it'll be easier to look at with a cleaned up version to take it all in as a whole. That might just be how my brain works, but
But
Okay,
do we
unless
need
I
to
hear
vote
otherwise-
really quick on amendments?
Yeah, unless
Like-
I hear otherwise, we'll just keep going, and when we're done with our time, we'll end here, and then we'll continue at our next meeting. Okay, I'm not hearing anybody say otherwise, so we're gonna just keep going. Okay, so you had a recommendation, Board Member Brenton.
Yeah,
Want to move that it cleans up those headings, maybe? Is that kind of the idea there?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I moved that. Let's see, do I need to wait for better language or read?
Or maybe tell them what you want the language to be, and they'll type it as you go.
I moved that we restructure the policy into 2 standalone sections. Section A, library acquisition and curation protocols. Do I read that whole? And section B, reconsideration of challenged materials.
Okay. Any discussion to that or additional discussion? Okay. The motion that Board Member Brenton has moved is to restructure the policy into 2 distinct standalone sections. Section A, library acquisition and curation protocols, which would be governing new purchases and 30-day public review window. And Section B, reconsideration of challenged materials. I'll just leave it at that because we actually took out the 30-day public review window. We just made it so that all materials could be reviewed in our last meeting. So we're just gonna make it into these 2 sections. Is that
without
Chair
the
Earl?
parentheticals, right? The
Yeah, do you
parentheticals
want to
are not.
keep, you don't want to keep the parentheticals?
I don't think we want those, no.
Okay.
Joanne, is that
We're moving.
okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, is
Any
that
ad-
accurate now?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Any additional discussion to this? All right. All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Sounds like that passed unanimously. All right. Did you have another one?
Yeah, I was wondering about us, should we be defining what the committee composition should look like? Because if we leave committee composition open-ended in the model policy, each LEA is left to kind of reinvent the wheel. So should we specify that it's balanced, that it has several parents from the
Our
LEA?
rule-
Or
I
what
think
is,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I mean, I'm just putting that out there to discuss.
I think our rule requires certain provisions already.
Okay.
Davina, can you speak to those, or maybe do you want more detail on that? But it does speak to the rule requires certain things. LEAs can use that rule and then expound on it or whatever, as long as it meets the requirements of the rule.
And maybe I'm getting too far into like what should be local control, and that's already.
Well, this is a model policy, so
Yeah.
yeah. Davina, do you have any you want to say on that?
Yes, board rule seems to intentionally be flexible to accommodate different LEA sizes. So the board rule all says 3 or more members and must include at least one parent for objective reviews and includes school community parents for subjective reviews. So parents are included in both objective reviews and subjective reviews, according to board rule.
Okay, then that seems like it's sufficient. Probably I'll withdraw that motion.
Okay, go ahead.
And then I also wondered if we should amend and restrict the immediate rule or immediate removal of materials to the objective statutory violations.
I think it's in there if I'm understanding this, but explain that a little bit more.
Well, so that things that are deemed, pornographic, really sensitive, that those are placed on a hold while it pens the review rather than, so that they could still be checked out with parent approval or something, but
I
not
think it's there.
removes anything, or is that there already? Is that already?
Am I right? It's immediately removed, but you'd have to go through a process until it goes through the full, right? You'd have to get
Yes.
parent consent. Is that accurate?
Yes, statute 53G 10103 says that with a plausible claim of sensitive materials, regardless of objective or subjective, the material is immediately removed from the school setting. And then if there's a potential subjective claim, then it can be allowed to have student access with a parent approval.
Okay, so that's already in there. All right, I'll withdraw that too and go to board member Green.
Okay.
Oh, I'm good. I'm following along.
Okay. Can I just add in there? Can we add in, this should be a quick one, that obscene animal abuse material. So it's not just animal abuse, that it's the language from the law.
Yeah, and can I ask, because I felt like board member Real had a good point in talking to her, like a lot of the books are not glorifying animal abuse, but they're actually trying to teach a lesson so that it's not done. So how do we differentiate? What does the law specifically say, that new law that was passed?
It has 2 provisions. I think I exited out though. Let me see if I can find it. This is what it says. It says obscene animal abuse material means material that depicts animal crushing. And I can tell you what animal crushing is. It means actual conduct in which the living non-human mammal, reptile, bird, and amphibian is intentionally crushed, burned, drowned, suffocated, impaled, or otherwise subjected to serious bodily injury. Okay.
And this was specifically added in law with regards to literature?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's things that do not fall into that, like hunting, trapping, fishing, killing animals for food, medical or scientific there's some other provisions in there. So it does.
Nobody's going to look at Old Yeller and shooting the dog because it had rabies as animal abuse, right? Like,
no, I think that would fall under what? Animal management practice. maybe if the animal's sick, right, and has to
Right.
be put down, that falls under these does not include.
Yeah, I just think there's there should be a distinction. Sometimes books try to highlight the grotesque or their horror, and but then sometimes it's teaching a lesson about why you wouldn't want to do that. So I don't know if there's a way to differentiate.
Well, maybe I'll send you I'll tell you where the law is and you can look and
Okay.
see if you feel like it breaks it out enough because it does now. It is in the law as far as that specific term. 76-5C-101.
And maybe for this, the best policy for a model policy is to refer to that law
Yeah.
because it is yeah, I think I had a bunch of librarians be a little bit concerned about Black Beauty or Old Yeller or Of Mice and Men. And so
And I think
as
it
long
also
as the
talks about,
reviewers are being
yeah.
critical about their thoughtfulness on that law, then I think that's what's important. But
Well, I think it needs to be in there. Do people know that it's been changed, though? That's the only reason why I put it in there. Because to say, well, we'll just
Okay.
refer to the law if people don't realize it's in there, because I didn't even realize this was moving forward during the legislative session until got close to the end.
yeah. But maybe just for that specific one, I mean, that's standard. I
Could
don't
you
know.
put obscene animal as referenced in or as
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it.
so
Obscene
that
animal abuse material as referenced in 50 or 76 5C 101.
See, what happens is I say something and then Leanne says it way better and more clear. And so that's why this is a board.
Called teamwork. So, okay.
You do a good job, Sarah.
It has added animal abuse in several places, right? With regards to
Yeah, just make sure wherever it
Yeah.
has that it's changed to.
through that section.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on just a sec to make sure I'm getting what you're asking. So you want this wherever
Animal
abuse is referenced.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Then we don't have to go and find all the lines.
Right. Yeah, great. Okay. In the model policy. Is that what you want?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that would be my motion on that. So it's clear and not just anything, right? So it's not just. Okay. All right. So the recommendation is that to add the words obscene animal abuse material as referenced in 76-5C-101, section 76, 5C 101, wherever animal abuse is referenced in the model policy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I think that was unanimous. I don't know if I heard from Board Member Rill. And, okay, Board Member Rill,
I
did
did
you
say
have?
aye. I said aye. I was the
Oh, you
first
did,
one.
okay.
Yeah.
We have just about 6 minutes. Do you have some others that you would like to move or consider?
Yeah, sorry, I'm moving around because I have another board meeting after this. Okay. I believe the age appropriateness we've kind of covered already. And removing the 30 days. And the animal piece. Just double checking my notes. Oh, the last one was the inventory piece.
And you wanted to put it with, you wanted to have like a grandma request on that in place of?
Yeah. What I heard from folks was that the request to have the list so readily available was a lot of work for them, and they felt like sorry.
Do they not have, and maybe this is a question for Davina, most of those are online databases. I don't believe I have to write
Well, they
down.
wanted them posted, like, and I didn't, it felt icky to me, that piece.
Aren't they already having to be posted? By law, don't they have to have posted what's available in their library? I thought that was part of the law in order for parents to go look. Am I wrong in that?
Davina, South Off Library Media Specialist here. Yes, the transparency legislation, transparency in school libraries legislation requires that their databases be visible to parents or of the LEA to review the materials. It does not require a spreadsheet. I don't know if that was what the question was, but
that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your draft, Chair Earl, you had the requirement of having that, and
Yeah, I'm looking for it too.
the
Sorry.
inventory. Yeah.
I think it's towards the end here. I don't know where it is. Sorry.
It referenced the National Book Rating Index. It was just like, it felt like if they want to ask for an inventory of every book in the school library, they can submit a grammar request to get all of that information. But that additional requirement just to have the list felt unnecessary.
All right, let me look at the actual. Did we find where it was at yet?
I'm trying to.
I am too. So it would be F under section, right above section 3 on page 5, maybe? Let me read it. So an LEA shall provide an online platform for library materials through which a parent is able to view the author, title, and a description of any material the parent's child borrows from the school library, including a history of borrowed materials, and provide a complete book inventory list on a spreadsheet when requested if possible. So maybe spreadsheet's not the right word. So maybe it is.
Yeah.
What would that need to be? Maybe it's not a spreadsheet. How would that be accessible? What would be the accessible term?
And I only said grammar request because that was what the librarians recommended to me. That's how they could say, if we get a grammar request, we can give them that full inventory.
Shouldn't that inventory be accessible for transparency reasons already? I guess that's my question. I put that on there, but if they wanted to access it.
So do we have,
do you have a thought on that?
a motion or something that, I'm sorry, that we're discussing, or are we just trying to figure out kind of what's our policy here?
Well, what I had
I'm
asked,
still lost.
yeah, what I had asked, because I have it on my draft, and provide a complete book inventory list in a spreadsheet when requested and possible. That if a parent went in and asked for that, but I'm trying to understand how that currently is accessible. And if it is already accessible, this may not be necessary. And if it's not, we can put it as through Utah's open and public meetings request or in an accessible manner for parents. So, Davina, do you have a thought on that?
So if parents are already able to access the online database now, I'm wondering what the added spreadsheet, like what would that add to parents when they can already access the database and the titles online now? I'm just wondering, just for more, so I can help understand like what would maybe be a good suggestion.
Okay, so my question would be online platform materials throughout the parent is able to view the title, author. So are they only able to view the description of the materials their child has, or all materials? And I guess that's the clarification, right?
Yeah. So the Transparency in Public Libraries legislation required that the parents that provided an online platform for like anything that was in the database and what their student checkouts were specifically. So LEAs have their catalogs, the entire catalog is available online for parents to review whatever titles are within the school catalog or the district catalog. But if they wanted to see their students' checkouts, that would require a login for them to see only their students. But they can see all of the titles that a school or district has within the catalog without logging in.
Okay.
Is it not policy that, is it a state policy that districts send an email when their student checks out a book and just lets the parent know what book is being checked out? Or is that just a district level policy? Because Washington County does that and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, there's no state requirement to send an email for when your child checks out. Yeah.
So if I'm understanding you, you're saying that this provision is not necessary because parents can already access that.
That would be my suggestion. Yeah, that parents can access what titles are already in a school or district catalog.
Can the community, or is it only a parent initiated piece?
Well, Jenny, you can't have the community getting access, but then not being able to be on the review committees.
Well, to be honest, I, as a staff member of USBE, have gone on to school catalogs, district catalogs, and looked at material, even though I'm not a parent in that community. So it is possible, depending on the LEA. I think in an email I shared with, I can't remember what one of you, that some LEAs put it behind their like parent login so that you have to log into the parent portal to see the catalog, and some LEAs just have it on their website. So it would be dependent upon how the LEA has it structured, whether it was open to the community or whether it was only available to parents of the LEA, of a student in the LEA.
Okay. Sarah, did you want to make a motion?
Well, I want to make a motion you're comfortable with, but which would be that shall provide, we just go back to the original draft policy of that section.
I think I do like your language that you have here.
Okay, well then great.
And
okay,
request,
then we'll just do that.
book inventory through Utah's
That's fine then.
Meetings request.
So I'll make a motion that we amend section 2.f, even though it says A right there, to change the word request, or to remove the word provide and add the word request, and then add a complete book inventory through Utah's open and public meetings request, and then remove list in a spreadsheet when requested and possible.
Could I just ask a question? Because being a person who's never gone through the open and public meetings request, is that a difficult process that's going to be limiting? Because many districts already do just provide a list of all their books, right? Where it's already online. So is that going to have them not wanting to make that open? I just don't want to make it harder to find what books are in the districts if it's already up, and just curious.
I believe that in some circumstances you have to so you're going to test me on my knowledge. I think there's fees sometimes associated with it, and then sometimes there has to be there's a requirement that if it's a public interest, great public interest, then that fee will be waived. If not, there is a fee associated with it.
Yeah, I think that might make it too hard, and then might make it feel like we're just not being transparent if we have to go through the grandma.
Yeah. So if it's accessible already to parents, that if someone from the public, there should be a way for them just to come in and request access to the book inventory. Is that?
I think a lot of them have it online where you can just log in. Do they not?
Yeah, so there's not, I guess there's really, I guess you're right. That does add a layer of complexity and maybe even a charge for parents. Is there a way to word that so that it's the public may request complete book inventory or access to the book? Maybe it's just access to the book inventory. Could that maybe be that simple?
Can I just ask a clarifying, and maybe it was said, but why did we need to add the Utah OPMA there? Like,
I think the
what is the
request
legal
was,
purpose?
well, Board Member Real can speak to it. She's probably
Yeah, sorry, I'm re-looking through my notes again. Well, I was trying to find a balance there between what Member Earl had on her draft and then also not creating a process that's too burdensome for librarians to have random people just constantly requesting their lists. It just felt like it kind of prompted some bad actors is what I was thinking, but.
well, and I asked for a spreadsheet. I don't know that that's how it's always, right? So cleaning that language up needed to be done.
By a spreadsheet, is that like a printed spreadsheet or is that like a?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is it kind of left that.
Like a document?
Oh, okay. I did have one LEA say that they talked to their attorneys there and how they've handled that was through the open and public meeting as well. And then, I mean, just to give you an example, Canyons School District has 352,000 plus copies of 117,000 unique titles across 43 campuses. So I'm trying to make it so that these librarians aren't tired out by having these requests come through.
Yeah, so access to the book inventory, however that they want to do that. And maybe they do request that there's a form filled out. I don't know. But I think keeping it simpler, just access to the book inventory, most parents can access it. Davina,
Yeah.
are you trying to raise your hand?
Well, I was just listening to you all, and I think what I'm hearing is you want parents to be able to see their child's checkouts, including the history and the catalog, the library catalog. So what if to that sentence you just added, including a history of borrowed materials and the complete library catalog? That gives, that online platform is already there, and now we're making it just a little bit more clear without putting the grandma request in the spreadsheet in there. Just a suggestion.
Okay, and you're saying, so we would put that, but that would be in addition to this, because this would be the public can.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my students' high school media center page, and they've got Koha, the library book search listed, Utah's online library resources, teaching books, and Sora. And then there's a place where you can put in a new book request.
Okay, we're on time-wise. Do we want to try to vote on this now, or?
Yeah, let's just vote on that. I think how you had it, Member Earl. I think that's most
to the book.
Yeah.
We'll just go access to book inventory, and then this will come back to committee next month if there's some additional clarification people want.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion would be to amend section 2F to remove the word provide and add the word request and add access to the book inventory. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm just clarifying that's all
yeah.
that you're adding, because the down below still has the green and the blue.
Nope,
So-
we're only, that would end that sentence there.
Okay, thank you. So I'm an aye.
Okay. I hear
I'm
from
an aye.
Okay, so that passes unanimously. And we need to allow a couple people to get to other meetings. So
Ironically, I have to go to a library board meeting.
yes, what did we get through? We got through all the action on. So we have information. So
I did have a motion to make, but I don't.
Oh, do you want to do that right
do
now?
want to be mindful of, could we just take 5 minutes or 3 or 2? Let me just make it, if we want more time to think about it, and it might need to be placed in a different space actually, but let me just go ahead and make this motion. And this is coming from our meeting last week or 2 weeks ago. Just move that the Standards and Assessment Committee directs staff to conduct a comprehensive review an audit. And again, I don't know if that's appropriate here or if this is what that word should be, of public school library material selection and acquisition practices in Utah, including funding sources, procurement procedures, vendor and publisher relationships, librarian qualifications and training, collection, development standards, distribution, influence, and the role of professional organizations in shaping library policies and purchasing decisions. And this is, if I can speak to it real quick.
Go ahead.
I think that there is still there's just still a little bit of a space that exists that I think we are almost at where we can fully understand the relationship between our school libraries and, you know, publishers and distribution centers and all of that at large, you know, vendor procurement. I said, again, it's like an order is procured, it's picked, it's created, it's shipped, it's received, it's inventoried. And I think that I just, and the state of Utah would really love to have an understanding of what this is, so that we don't have to continue to be reactive to an industry that has full access to, you know, a minority population. Like, we have a very important stewardship over this institution that we are creating, public education. And so I just thought being able to kind of do a deep dive and understand what that looks like, and what I want to do with that is to butt it up against, you know, our sensitive materials rule, and just see what we can see, and we can fully speak to it. So again, like I mentioned last meeting, that it seems that it would be our librarians that are in the hot seat, and I don't think any of us want our librarians to be in that seat. I also followed the news article that came out that said, oh, it's just parents that are doing this. We have a rule that parents have to do the work, but we also are trying to acknowledge that we have professionals that are doing their job. And so we have a lot of kind of reactive and things that we need to really figure out. And I just think that this would help us sort out the complexities of this, and hopefully simplify where maybe things have gone wrong, and we can kind of maybe even communicate better to that I don't know, industry at large, and protect that relationship we have with being stewards over people's children, offering the best that we can, and encouraging an industry to be aware that it's not free reign anymore, but also doing it in a thoughtful and educated way.
So just one clarification. Okay, I agree with this. There's not going to be time to get this ready for June.
No.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Backup is due next week, and I'm not sure if Davina is going into panic mode or not, because I am a little bit going, ah. Is it okay if we go for August on this information?
I think we're flexible, like,
okay.
And you know, how about some feedback?
Okay.
The other thing is, it might fall under an audit. Again, I don't know if this is the right space, but I am looking for a very thoughtful, thorough kind of understanding and investigation into those relationships.
Okay. What any other comments on that? If not, we will take a
do we need to put a month on it?
I don't know. I'm kind of thinking through this a little bit.
I need it to be done before December.
I know. That's why I'm like,
I don't even see how this could be done by August, because I know Davis School District is out on Friday. I don't know about other districts, but now you're looking at librarian qualifications. So you're looking at, I have 92 schools in my district in Davis alone. What are the library qualifications for each of those? You're going to having to do a survey into every school and half of them will have, half-time secretaries for the next 3 months. I don't think August.
Do you think Davina could bring us back maybe a timeline of what she thinks this would take for next month, and maybe start if there's pieces that could be done? Does that sound like a timeline of what this might look like if we were to do more deep dive?
That would probably be better, just because I'm looking at that single one alone. That library qualification is going to be a heavy lift.
Okay. That can we put maybe just at the end of that, staff will, or somewhere there, staff will bring up a timeline next month as to what they would think this would take. Does that sound, do you think that's doable by next week to get a rough timeline for us? Okay, I see a thumbs up. Okay. Board Member Green, does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let me just read this out real quick. We're trying to hurry so we can get Sarah to her meeting. Moved that the Standards Assessment Committee direct staff to bring back a timeline for conducting a comprehensive review and audit of public school library materials selection and acquisition practices in Utah, including funding sources, procurement procedures, vendor and publisher relationships, librarian qualifications and training, collection development standards, distributor influence, and the role of professional organizations in shaping library policies and purchasing decisions. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, that passes unanimously. And
Member Earl, I have a
yes.
motion.
Okay, what's your
Sorry,
motion?
I forgot. Sorry. Leah, I sent it to you over chat or in Teams or whatever. But it's just to
Okay,
direct
just a sec.
staff, going back to what we started this meeting on, it was just to direct staff to take all the ideas from today's meeting and create a draft of like what it would look like document that shows from start to finish the process, adding in the ideas of the 7 to 10 year review, the subcommittee, and instead of the initial
You're talking
committee.
not about the library piece. You're talking about
No,
the
standards. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry. We were going to come back to it at the end. So I
Yes,
was waiting
yep,
and then
we're
I realized
there.
that we're now here. Yeah. But just like, I think Member Green had some questions about like, well, what does that look like? And how do we know if they're who we're choosing and all those questions? I think that it would be helpful to have just like what it would look like an overview document of how that process works out from start to finish with those new elements that we've been talking about. The other committee having the leads or the whatever you call them.
Okay, that sounds
So
good.
basically it's just asking staff, because I think that will help visualize it and help answer a lot of those questions that kept coming up. Like, well, but how does that work with?
Okay. Okay, so let me see where that is at. And I think we can just ask that. I don't even know if, does that need to be a motion? Just ask, because that comes back next month that we have a clean document of what the provisions might look like if we were to implement some of those suggestions. Okay, I can read it out though. We can do it. Ideas from today's meeting. Let's see, direct staff to take the standards review, update ideas from today's meeting and draft a clean what would it look like document showing start to finish, adding in the ideas of the 7 to 10 year review, the subcommittee instead of the review committee, where the leads could interact, etc., and help show the process laid out for transparency and understanding. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. And we're going to end our meeting. The things we didn't get to today will continue. So we have the continuation of information on the physical education standards. Thank you, staff. I'm sure you've been on here waiting, hoping, fingers crossed, we would get to it. And then the sensitive material model policy will back in committee next month. And then also the standards review process. Okay. Looking for a final motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, the motion has been made to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.